TikTok, time to rock. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon to everyone who's watching from all over the world. Friendly neighborhood philosopher here, D. Wood. And with me now, we have everyone's favorite Turk. Forgot to silence that. Hey, AP.
Yes.
You heard of this Dave Smith dude?
Yes.
What is this? We got some people. I know he was super popular and stuff, and then blew up a bunch. He was on Joe Rogan. Everyone said he humiliated Douglas Murray. I didn't see most of that stuff. Sal here
That was
saying,
complete nonsense, man. He was, as far as I understand, he completely contradicted his Douglas Murray debate in this debate. So I'm really curious as to how this goes.
well, we're just going to be watching the stuff about jihad because Dave Smith has his theories about jihad, and attacking the U.S. and the hatred towards non-Muslim countries. He doesn't think it has anything to do with Islam, or if it does, something very minor, but not really important. So we're gonna give everyone a crash course.
Hey, careful with the word minor, man. You're gonna make all the Muslims go crazy.
Oh my goodness! First, in the other stream, he mentioned a goat. Now he's mentioning minors. What's he trying to do to us? We can't even watch. Let's see. Sal says Dave Smith isn't just anti-Zionist. He befriends himself with the biggest self-describes anti-Semites because they appreciate he's a Jew who hates Israel. Dave is a pawn in a bigger game. I'm sure he is paid. Let's see. Dave Smith is never right. All he does, he tries to say Israel and Jews are the problem while being an American Jew thousands of miles away from Israel war. He is the ultimate virtue signaling as a Jew. Let's see. Dave Smith's whole shtick is blaming terrorist attacks on USA and Israel. Yeah, he does that here. And that Muslims wouldn't be attacking if USA wasn't supporting Israel. Zero knowledge of jihad or caliphate history. Yeah, that I only watched about the first 30-some minutes of the discussion. That's where they were talking about the connection to Islam. And I don't know what he knows on other topics. He may be the most knowledgeable person in the world on other topics for all I know. But on the issue of Islam, this dude has no clue what he's talking about.
He's pretty clueless on pretty much everything. So
Oh, yeah?
he does have a little bit of an understanding of certain talking points in politics and history, and recent history specifically. But he likes to he likes to make up false facts and come up with this fake historical narrative, which we can also see. I'm not sure how far you want to go in this conversation, but yeah, that's what he does.
We're just looking at the Islam stuff. Because I have to say, after hearing him speak confidently about what is and is not Islam, makes me. Let me put it this way. If he told me something else on a different topic, I'd say you're going to have to show me. Even if I had no reason to think he's wrong, he would still have to show me.
Powerful.
Let's see. All right. Should we just jump into this?
Let's jump into this right now. Let's see what happens.
Just knock out these first two super chats real quick. And then David Woods, this is hate money. Islam owns you. That's good.
Who's David Woods?
Yeah. Who's David Woods? I know I do the work of multiple men, but there's still only one of me.
I do the work of 30 men.
I know I do the work of 30 men. Excluding Hamas, are Muslims in Gaza more religious than the ones in Ramallah or Bethlehem? I've still yet to visit the Holy Land myself, so curious. I would have no reason to think that Muslims in Gaza are more religious than ones in the West Bank, but questions never crossed my mind.
They live more under more religious circumstances, and their clothing, for example, differs quite a bit. When you see videos of Gaza before the war and videos of Ramallah and Bethlehem before the war, you will see that in Ramallah and Bethlehem, it is there is more of a westernized way of living, whereas in Gaza, people are more in niqabs and hijabs and goat outfits and all that. And Gaza is just under Islamic rule, so people live accordingly. The same cannot be said about Ramallah or Bethlehem.
The question is, are the Muslims there more religious?
Probably.
Hey,
I care a lot about Bethlehem.
Isn't it funny that city's named Ram Allah? Like, why wouldn't you change the name? The city's named Ram Allah. Like
Ram Allah.
That's like what's your next city going to be named? Zut Muhammad?
Yeah.
Look, hey, what city we want to go to for dinner? We're going to Ram Allah or Zut Muhammad? What the heck, man? Change the name. Anyway,
yeah.
Some names just need to be changed. Let's see. Pol says, watched only 30 minutes. Whole debate was a masterclass. That's what I keep hearing. And it's cool because based on what I've seen so far, Coleman will he'll raise an issue and let Dave talk, and then raise an objection and let Dave talk and stuff like this. And everyone's saying that he crushed him doing that. So, yep, Coleman seems pretty sharp. Dizzle. But yeah, I didn't have time to watch the entire thing. So early this morning, and I watched about between 30 and 40 minutes of it. Dizzle, I hear you and Chris are writing a book on a certain dilemma. Will your book adamantly confirm his book while simultaneously being the guardian and final authority over his book? Yeah, we've already discussed like if our books can be confirming each other somehow. We think that would be pretty funny. I just discovered D Wood is 49 while researching Dearborn. I am shooketh. Yeah, about to hit the big 50, half a century.
You're 49.
Hey, I also just had my 24th wedding anniversary. So next year I will be hitting half a century old, and it will be my quarter of a century wedding anniversary, all in the same year. I'm going to have to do something dope. Oh, wait, no. Wait a minute. Yeah, Wait a minute. When was I married, man? No, this year was my 23rd. Okay, yeah, next year's 24th. And then 25th the year after that. Okay, never mind. We're not going to get that awesome alignment of half a century and quarter a century. How did Mo get to 72 in Jannah? By counting sheep. Very rude. Hey, D Wood, how along are you in the Islamic Dilemma reading project? Still using the same commentary, or did you get yourself a new resource? Still using the same commentary. What do you mean? I don't know what you mean by the same commentary. Yeah, a bunch of people in the group are actually ahead of me. A bunch of them have already finished it and stuff like that. I have not finished, because I'm extremely slow and easily sidetracked, and I periodically cannot read the Quran and actually pay attention to what it's saying, and so I have to take a break from it for a while. All right, AP, you ready?
Yeah.
We've got comedian Dave Smith explaining jihad to everyone. Thank you, Dave Smith.
Okay, Dave Smith, thanks so much.
What's that?
With Gary Coleman.
For coming on my show.
Thank you for having me, Coleman. I've been looking forward to this.
Yeah, so you are one of the maybe the most requested guest I've had over the past 6 months to a year. You have made a name for yourself as a very effective debater on Joe Rogan, on Piers Morgan, Lex Friedman you've been on, as a critic of U.S. foreign policy and also Israeli, the war in Israel. So I want to get to all these topics. And I want to say first that I think a lot of your conversations have devolved into sort of referendums on you as a person, which to me is totally uninteresting. And I think My audience knows what my MO is and what I'm about. I'm about.
Wait, why would people be attacking Dave Smith as a person? Is that true?
People usually point out how terribly inconsistent he is and all that. If you're going to call that attacking his person, I don't know.
Yeah. So the point is, I don't know what this guy's talking about. I don't know if, normally if you're like bringing up arguments and saying, we need to stop this, we need to stop supporting Israel. And someone's like, oh, but you're an idiot. Look at your stupid face. Your beard looks stupid. I'd be like, well, it's irrelevant to his. Why don't you answer his argument, people? But I don't even know what Coleman's talking about with, anyone know? Anyone know? We'll keep watching and stuff, but if you guys know why people would be dismissing Dave Smith and attacking him, let me know.
Talking about the substantive issues that both of our audiences care about, like we, in the grand scheme of history, our egos as people don't matter all that much. So I want to say that, and I hope that...
Tell that to Candace Owens. Ego doesn't matter. What's wrong with you?
Can model that kind of conversation, though I expect us to disagree about many issues, if not most. Sound fair?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's kind of why I was looking forward to doing this, because, not that we don't really know each other that well, but I've watched some of your stuff and I've always kind of gotten that vibe from you, that was how you would approach this conversation. And despite the fact that I've been in my fair share of like mudslinging competitions, I generally do not prefer to do it that way. And I completely agree with you. I think it's like one of the challenges of doing what we do is that you're on a show and you're a public person, and the tendency to focus on oneself or to make.
Oh, little side note, everyone, because I said we're going to be talking about Islam and Jihad. I think the first 6 or 7 minutes or something, they're talking about politics and how he ended up getting his ideas or something like that, and his political views. But in the course of that, they set up the discussion because he said he was basically questioning everything the government said about Islam and why Muslims are mad at us and things like that. So basically, just so we don't take the main part of their discussion about Islam out of context, I'm leaving in all this other stuff, even though some of the stuff here at the beginning is not going to be terribly relevant, but it comes up in this opening part here.
Oneself the story, or for others to focus on the individual is it's very easy to fall into, and we all should remind ourselves, no matter where we fall on the issues, that like there's actually people dying right now. There's actually a conflict going on. Like there's huge
Do you mean in Nigeria?
implications to all of this, and that's actually much more important than any of that other stuff. And so I am completely on board with that.
Okay. So
did he just go on for a minute and a half saying, yeah, you're right? Anyway.
Yes.
before we get into the issues, I imagine many people in my audience might be familiar with you enough to know your origin story, but you're a comedian that's found a second career as a political commentator. And so walk me through that. What inspired you to get into all of these issues?
Hey, I have to say, the going from comedian to some sort of commentator or podcaster seems to work well, because that's Joe Rogan in a nutshell. So anyway, seems to work well. You build up your comedy skills, and then you're more entertaining when people watch you. Smart.
Well, I was I started stand-up comedy first, and I wasn't like political really at all. I mean, I was a little, I grew up in New York City. I was in New York City on 9/11. I was like a left liberal for most of my life, but without being very well informed or anything. Just that was kind of the standard, starting point for like a Jewish kid raised by a single mom in Brooklyn. And then, so, after 9/11, I did grow to really dislike George W. Bush. The 9/11 and the war in Iraq were very much kind of, my coming of age time. And I was really against the war, and I was really against George W. Bush.
Hey, hang on, AP. Also, in case anyone knows, the whole discussion about Islam, they're talking about 9/11 and the attacks and so on, and at least in this section, he doesn't come out with any like deranged conspiracy theory about the U.S. government doing it or the Jews, the dancing Jews, or something like that. Anyone know, or AP, if this guy is not the crazy conspiracy theorist that we usually encounter? Anyone know? Because he didn't come out with one. Like, Coleman was talking about stuff. They're talking about 9/11, and I was just expecting, just because I hear it all the time now. I was expecting, but our government did this, or, this is the Jews. But all they talked about was why Muslims would not like us. So yeah, if anyone knows if he just, if he toes the party line that he's been spoon-fed from the U.S. government, which really carried out the attack, let me know. Anyway.
I knew enough to get that. And then it was just in 2007, I just happened to be watching the Republican primary debate, and I saw there was this what's now become kind of like a viral, famous moment where Ron Paul and Rudy Giuliani go.
Hold up. Weck Street says Dave is not a crazy conspiracy guy. He's an anti-war guy. Okay, I would regard anti-war guys as significantly better than crazy conspiracy guys.
At it, arguing over what causes terrorism and what led to 9/11. And I don't know, just the moment to me was really fascinating. And it's still, I think, no matter what your politics are, a very fascinating moment. Because at the time, Rudy Giuliani was polling number one. He was leading the pack. And Ron Paul is a complete unknown, just a congressman from Texas who's has no national presence. And Rudy Giuliani, in terms of the crowd reaction, dominates him in this exchange. But Ron Paul is just dropping wisdom. And then from that, it created this huge movement, and to this day is still something that people I'll see posted all the time. Granted, my algorithm might be a little biased on that, but
you think?
But and then I just fell down the rabbit hole. I was just so interested in that guy. So I went and got his book, and then I loved it. The book was Revolution. That was the first Ron Paul book that I ever read. And then I just started falling down the rabbit hole. And
if he keeps talking about, I'm trying to avoid jokes because this is a serious show. But quit talking about falling down holes, man. You're making it really, really difficult.
Reading everything I could get my hands on about libertarianism and foreign policy and just political theory in general, history, economics.
We get it. You love yourself. We get it.
Yes, I mastered every topic and I became the world's greatest political theorist in history.
And then I don't know. I was just, for a while there, I was just a stand-up comedian. I was making around this period of time, 2007, 2008, 2009, 2010, I was kind of just eking out a living. Some bigger comedians would bring me on the road with them. And so I was just I didn't have a day job. I was doing just good enough to be dead broke without having a day job. And then essentially, right, I just had to work at nights. I had to go to nightclubs and tell jokes. But I had my whole days for free. And I wasn't married at the time. I didn't have kids at the time. And I just got obsessed with all of this stuff. And so I was just that guy. I was the guy, just being weird and reading all this stuff. And then...
1 second. Risky said, Dave, is true you're coming to Michigan? Yeah, we want to go to Michigan. We just haven't... There's nothing set. We haven't decided any dates and so on. I'm not sure how quickly this could happen because... it's about to be winter up there. So we'd either have to jump on this quickly or wait until spring or something like that. But yeah, so me, God Logic, AP, IP have all, hasn't been formalized or anything, but we've all come up with the idea, hey, why don't we head up, set up a God Logic thing in a park there, and invite Muslims for discussion. So, but yeah, nothing set, nothing firm yet. Nothing firm yet.
going to nightclubs and doing stand up. And this is all really before like the podcast revolution. And then once the, podcasting just became so big, it was just like the next logical progression was like, oh, start talking about this on shows. And then years of doing that. I think I started in 2011 or 2012 podcasting. And then over the years, it just, little by little kind of picked up. And becoming friends with Joe Rogan is really helpful in this business, I've found.
Oh, is that why he's so famous? He's friends with Joe Rogan? Would we have any clue who this guy is if it weren't for Joe Rogan?
Nay.
So it sounds like Ron Paul was very important to your evolution. What do you think are the most important things that Ron Paul got right?
So I guess the big one, right, like in the Giuliani moment was really him tearing down the lie, the propaganda, which dominated, like right after 9/11, which was the idea that the terrorists hate us for our freedom. And they hate our goodness and our wonderfulness or something like that. Like they would never like really exactly spell out what it was about our freedom, but like you're supposed to imagine that they're all motivated by like, I don't know, women in miniskirts or something like that, or our right to free speech. And he was like, well, look, like there is a whole other huge element to this here that actually drives this conflict. And that's that they hate us for what we're doing over there, and that there are real grievances they have with America's foreign policy. And here they are. And
okay, guys, so now he's raising the issue that started changing his mind because he'd heard that the reason these jihadis hate us is because of our freedom. It's because our freedom, they don't like us because of freedom, and they want to stop us from having freedom. And he's saying, what exactly about our freedom do they not like so much that they want to attack us? And then he said, by golly, I heard it from Ron Paul, who said, actually, it's not our freedom, it's that we keep doing stuff to them and we keep attacking them. And so they're just mad. They're just mad at us. They're upset because we keep attacking them. And that apparently made more sense to him. And so obviously, if this is correct, obviously it will be nothing but peace and harmony for many, many centuries between Islam and the West, up until the bad United States comes along and starts messing around in Muslim countries. And that's when, ladies and gentlemen, Muslims start getting upset with us.
I really wonder who really brought up this whole idea, or was this actually something that people thought that we're just being attacked? They're just attacking us because they don't like our freedoms.
They were saying that. They were saying that they hate our freedom. And keep in mind there's some things, right? Like keep in mind they are obsessed with controlling how women dress, so they do have a problem with women in miniskirts. They are obsessed with controlling what people say. That's why they always go right for blasphemy laws. They want blasphemy laws in the US. They want blasphemy laws in Canada. They want blasphemy laws in the UK. They want blasphemy laws in Germany and France and so on. So they're right. So it's true. They have a problem with our freedom and how we use it because Islam is supposed to control everything. But it's actually a bunch of things. So one, they don't like us because we're just non-Muslims. That's an important part of it. And these terrorist groups have said repeatedly, we would hate you for being non-Muslims, but we also hate you for this. They've said it. They said they will give multiple reasons for hating us. So there's that we're actually non-Muslims. The real significance of the United States doing stuff in Muslim lands is that we're a constant reminder that the world is not the way Islam says it's supposed to be. They're supposed to be in control. They're supposed to be in charge over us. Islam is supposed to expand and expand and expand until it takes over the entire world. And they're supposed to be in charge. And they feel incredibly weak because the United States is way more powerful, and it really enrages them. So there's that. And we'll see some other things as things goes along. But you could trace a lot of the hostility back to the Muslim sources. That kind of amplifies things quite a bit, whatever the situation is. But we'll be seeing that.
Powerful. Well, that's the thing. That's the issue. Had things been properly addressed in the past, had there been a proper attempt to really explain what the problem is, and not just a blanket weird statement of they hate our freedoms and all that, maybe things could have gone into a better direction. Maybe had they consulted David Wood back then and said, David Wood, can you please come here and educate us on why they are attacking us and why they hate us? And you could have told them about the Al-Zut. Things could have gone better, but so this whole narrative, of course, of they hate our freedoms might have just contributed to messing everything up and creating a little bit more ignorance. But the bad thing about all of this is not the ignorance. The bad thing about this is you can see the results of it, right? People are given a not so accurate narrative, and then they end up misunderstanding and underestimating the actual problem, which is the problem of Islam and why Islam has so much hate for the disbelievers. This is what's wrong with misinforming people. This is what's wrong with conspiracy theories. This is also wrong with what's wrong with with giving only half the information to the people. If you don't tell people what's really going on, people will start underestimating the problem. That's where we are today.
Yeah, and one of the reasons I wanted to cover this whole section is Coleman is basically along the lines in the discussion. His position's basically along the lines of, yeah, they are ticked off at what we do, but there seems to be an Islamic component in all of this. And Dave Smith is like, no, pretty much anyone would react that way. People from any religion would react the same way, and so on.
Like
and
the
so
Japanese.
Islam, yeah, and so Islam just isn't a significant factor in, death to America and all that stuff. But we'll see, because we're going to actually check out the Muslim sources, ladies and gentlemen.
It just so happens that only Muslims react this way, but it probably has nothing to do with Islam.
Yeah, anytime someone says it's, because this happened to them, it's like, okay, that same thing happened to every group in the world. Islam is reacting in a particular way. Why? Why does Islam react differently? Let's see.
Really examine those and think about, what is this worth it? Is this the right thing to be doing? Is this productive for America? Is this moral? And I think that by it, you have to almost put yourself back in 2007. This is still during the George W. Bush administration, and there was for someone like me, I had heard, say, liberals who were against the war, but I had never really heard anyone break it down like that. And there was something about it that kind of it was almost like a portal where it allowed you to access a perspective from outside of the American empire. And I remember there was something about that was really, I thought, profound to me, that you're oh, okay, yeah, there's another perspective about the American empire from outside it. And they've got some real problems with this thing. And I found that to be very interesting. The other big thing was he really introduced the topic of the Federal Reserve. Almost nobody else was talking about it. I really, I don't think I knew what the Federal Reserve was until I heard Ron Paul talking about it. I think if you had asked me, I would have been I guess they have some money put away somewhere, and the federal government keeps reserves of something. I don't think
it's a giant mattress with all their money under it.
I even knew. And once I started reading about how the Federal Reserve actually works, it's I was just blown away that how did no one ever tell me this? How was this never taught to me in school? How, and so that I thought was very interesting. And then I think aside from that, just being the truest public champion of free market economics.
This whole thing going to be about Ron Paul, man? The heck?
Generally speaking. I mean, Ron Paul was so hardcore free market that he made he made Milton Friedman look like a socialist. He was just, and he really, I think was the only, or the most prominent public advocate of true, peace and laissez-faire free markets. And it seemed to me to be the only one who really had the courage of his convictions as far as those ideas were concerned.
Okay, so now they're going to focus on the topic of Islam. Coleman's going to say, "All right, let's focus on that topic for a bit." I do want to point out, as far as Dave Smith's view, that hey, the reason terrorists want to take us out is because we've horribly abused them. That really upset them. You know, they were minding their own business over there, and we keep going over and dropping bombs on them, and helping the wrong regimes and stuff, and helping oppress these poor guys, and that's why they don't like us. That only works if you have no clue about anything in history, because this came up very early on in the nation when you had the Revolutionary War, and then American ships were no longer under the protection of the British Navy. And so pirates, Barbary pirates, Muslim pirates, started they take the ship, take all the stuff, and take all the people and hold them for ransom or make them slaves. And so John Adams and Thomas Jefferson set up a meeting with the ambassador. Let me read this little part real quick. So they met with the ambassador from Tripoli. Let's see. But one cannot get around this, from an article by Christopher Hitchens when he examined this. He wrote a book about this. It says, but one cannot get around what Jefferson heard when he went with John Adams to wait upon Tripoli's ambassador to London in March 1785. When they inquired by what right the Barbary states preyed upon American shipping, enslaving both crews and passengers, America's two foremost envoys were informed that, quote, it was written in the Quran that all nations who should not have acknowledged their authority were sinners, that it was their right and duty to make war upon whoever they could find and to make slaves of all they could take as prisoners, and that every Muslim who should be slain in battle was sure to get to paradise. The discussion was, why are you guys attacking us? We've done nothing to you. We have never laid a hand on a Muslim. Why are you attacking us? What did we do? So, guys, this is the beginning of America. And as soon as America has ships that aren't protected by the British Navy, Muslim pirates start taking the ships and taking everyone as slaves. And American leaders are confused. Why are they attacking us? We had nothing to do with anything. So let's go meet with these guys and explain, hey, whatever you think about us, we're brand new. We've never done anything to you guys. Our nation has never touched you guys. Why are you attacking us? The response, again, it's written in the Quran that all nations who should not have acknowledged their authority were sinners, that it was their right and duty to make war upon whoever they could find and to make slaves of all they could take as prisoners, and so on. So in other words, we're attacking you because you're not Muslims and you don't acknowledge us as superior. So anyway, what happened, guys, was the U.S. started paying them massive amounts of money to not attack them. We'll pay you. We'll pay you not to attack us. And it started becoming a massive portion of the money that the United States had was being paid just to avoid pirates attacking. And people are complaining more and more. Why are we paying all this money for these guys not to attack us? And then eventually the U.S. has to decide, nope, we're gonna need a military here to be protecting our stuff. Point was, do they just hate us because of our freedoms? No, that's not true. Do they just hate us because, well, we've really been mean to them in Muslim countries? No, they hated us long before we ever did anything to them. But it just seems really comforting to people to be told, why do they hate you? Because of you. It's because your government enraged them with all the mean stuff you do. And a lot of people just like that message nowadays. Guess what? It's complete nonsense. I mean, yeah, you can do stuff that's ticking people off, but guess what? They hated you already before you did anything. So you can't say, oh, they hated us and wanted to attack us because of what we did. Well, guess what? Before you did it, they were already hating you and attacking you.
That's what they do.
That's what they do, ladies and gentlemen. All right, so now we're going to start this section. Let's take a couple super chats real quick, and then we'll jump into their enlightened discussion where Dave Smith is going to tell us what he understands Muslims better than Muslims understand themselves, fortunately, just like Obama. Let's see. I posted on my channel. Hey, this is MW Apologetics. I posted on my channel clips of me debating Dawa panels after your debate with John. But one of the Da'is copyright struck one of the videos. Any advice on getting that video back up? How do you avoid strikes on videos? Yeah, keep in mind, anyone can give you the copyright strike. You gotta fight it. As long as what you're doing is fair use. In other words, if you're adding commentary or something like that, then yeah, you can fight that. But it would depend on the situation. So I would advise you to look up copyright law, because you are allowed to use other people's copyrighted content. You are allowed to do that. But you can't just take someone's stuff and use it all you want, and like I can't take Raiders of the Lost Ark and just play it on my channel, because that would not be fair use. Got to be fair. And that's basically certain requirements. You're not taking money away from them. You're not kind of using too much of it without adding your own content. So you have to significantly transform it, things like that. But yeah, I would look that up and get used to that. Because you're going to have to fight these. I've won all the copyright things that I've challenged over the years.
I have won all the battles.
Won every battle. Let's see. Quran 841. Rasulullah gets hummus back from the war spoils, which is 1/5 or 20% tax refund. Do you guys see what's the purpose of Jihad of Momo? Yeah, no, it's brilliant. It's a brilliant plan. Everyone go out, fight. We'll take everyone's stuff and give me 1/5 of it.
Beautiful.
Hey, David, what percent of Dawa guys do you think really believe their argument? Some sound intelligent, but just decide to suspend logic with Islamic dilemma. Yeah, Islam actually trains them to turn off their reasoning ability when they're examining their own arguments. And you can see it. You have like a Muslim lantern. You bring up the Islamic dilemma to him, doesn't make any sense to him. He doesn't see how it's a problem. But you had that guy who believed in a book after the Quran. And what happened instantly? Muslim lantern said, hey, your book affirms the Quran, but it contradicts the Quran. And therefore, and he just went with the Islamic dilemma. I mean, went the exact same reasoning. So they are capable of understanding it. They just turn it off when the argument is against them. Thoughts on Gabriel Said Reynolds? Based. Good stuff. What? Seriously, you gonna ask me about this guy right here? Huh? Ask me about this guy?
Beast.
No, he's got good stuff. I've even seen on his channel interviewing people about even interviewing scholars about what the Quran actually says about the previous scriptures. And I saw one guy on there. He was breaking it down. He said the Quran does not say the Bible's been corrupted. This is like a guy from like a Middle Eastern university saying the Quran does not attack the scriptures of the people of the book. So good stuff. Infoed Lotus Eaters about you people. Gonna check you out. Yeah, I saw that. Someone sent a comment to them. What happened to Ash's stream yesterday? Yeah, I talked to Ash afterwards, but he was wondering if he wanted to, because his stuff has been like apologetic stuff, and he was wondering if he wanted his channel to go in a political direction. So he's basically making that decision. So he took it down until he figures it out.
Yeah.
You're confirming that?
Yeah.
If Pakistan can be created in the name of religion, then Israel can be created in the name of religion. End of story. It's all about Islamic supremacy. Yep, that was India. But then the British said, hey, we're drawing a line here and making this a separate country because we don't want these two groups to be under, we don't want a Muslim majority area being under the control of Hindus, and we don't want a Hindu majority area under the control of Muslims. So we're going to draw a line here. Same reasoning with Israel. D Wood, did you catch MW Apologetics new channel, it seems, and Hamza's Den, and then the Yemenis channel Defending You and the Islamic Dilemma? I didn't see the stuff. Some of the stuff popped up on my feed, so I've seen that it exists, but I haven't watched it yet. We might have identified the Garkid tree. Check out Jotham's Parable, Judges 9, 8-15. The bramble in Hebrew is, what is that? In English, box thorns, or lyceum. In Indonesia, translation is actually Garkid.
Oh, yeah. I heard that too.
That's about Abimelech's rebellion, and then you have these people are basically run into different kinds of trees and asking them to rule over us, and then they just said, well, take this bramble. That is interesting if there's actually a Garkid reference there. 730 days, boys. Oh, is that since the war started?
Yeah, and 11 days until it's over.
What do you mean 11 days till it's over?
I don't know. I'm just hoping.
Oh, okay. So I thought someone had scheduled something, and you have the inside scoop.
Maybe I do. I don't know.
Hey, tomorrow's the 2-year anniversary of the attack, man.
It is. I know.
We should do something big on your channel.
I should.
You should have some big base topic.
I should.
Imagine Dave saying this on Islam to Raymond Ibrahim. Oh, yeah, now that would be funny, because Raymond studies like the entire history of jihad. Robert as well. But yeah. Hey, yeah, they just hate us because the United States was mean to them. Really? Like, dude, were you? He has no clue of anything that was happening before he was born. If Islam's religion of peace, how come there is no peace in the Middle East? Well, there is in Israel. Smith,
You know, it's funny. So somebody just, brought up the whole thing, the Kargat reference in the Bible. There's a hadith. I'm not sure if you're aware of it, but there is a hadith in which a place named the Valley of Kargat is actually mentioned, or the Garden of Kargat. Baki Kargat or something like that in the hadiths, and it actually refers to where the cemetery was in Muhammad's time in Medina, and the place is kind of still a little bit sometimes known as that. So apparently at that place, at that cemetery, which today is still a major cemetery, there were a bunch of Kargat trees, and for some reason, those Kargat trees in Muhammad's head came to be associated with Jews. And those Kargat trees would probably protect the Jews from getting killed by him. And they were at a grave. I'm not sure what exactly happened there, but Muhammad had some sick thoughts in his mind.
it is interesting to figure out where this stuff comes from, because as we bring up many times, they called him the ear. They called him the ear because he would believe anything anyone told him. So you have to wonder, it's like he was playing hide and seek when he was a kid, and some Jew hid behind the tree, and he's like, oh no, I can't find you. Where is he? Where is he? Oh no, the tree won't say anything. The tree doesn't snitch. And then he, like for the rest of his life, the Garkid tree will don't snitch on the Jews.
Kargat ain't no snitch.
Plus, he would like hear voices and stuff like this. So he probably heard voices from we know he heard voices from other trees and everything. They'd all talk to him and stuff like this. And he's like, oh, all the trees are talking to me, but this Garkid tree won't tell me anything.
What's wrong with the stupid tree? It's the tree of the Jews, obviously.
Smith uses his supposed Jewish ethnicity as approbation and support of his BS beliefs, just like the intellectually dishonest Messianics. I think you mean the intellectually brilliant Messianics who read the scriptures and acknowledge Jesus as the Messiah. But
what do you
nice
mean
try.
by Messianics? Do you mean Messianic Jews, or what is it?
That's what he's talking about. He's just randomly dissing Messianics. Not here, buddy. Not
Messianic
here.
Jews are based.
Messianic Jews are based. CIA did shady stuff in Brazil. We not blowing up. Oh, yeah. So, yeah, that's the point. The CIA has done messed up stuff all over the world. You don't see everyone turning to terrorism. But for some reason, it just keeps popping up as a thing in the Muslim world. Now, to be fair, guys, anyone can resort to terrorism. You're outgunned, outmatched, and stuff like that. What do? Well, you can always turn to terrorism. It just never becomes the thing it does in Islam, right? So, I mean, just think. In Nigeria, you got Boko Haram. In Somalia, you got Al-Shabaab. Around Israel, you got Hamas, Hezbollah, ton of other groups. In a bunch of countries, you have Al-Qaeda. You've got the Taliban. Why do all of these groups from completely different parts of the world all come to the conclusion that when you don't get what you want, terrorism is the way to go? Where are they getting that idea, everyone? Where are they getting it? It's just coincidence that they all keep coming up with the exact same idea.
Yes.
UAE, Bahrain, Kuwait, Indonesia, and even Saudi Arabia are making progress while maintaining their conservative values. Praise Allah. Making progress. They got Iggy Azalea shaking her butt up on stage talking about worship the goddess.
Beast.
See, 100% correct. I don't know.
That's the future of Saudi Arabia, man. That's the future of Saudi Arabia. The future of Saudi Arabia is Iggy Azalea going up there and shaking her butt, just as Muhammad said it would happen when the women would go around Dhul Khalasa shaking their butts.
Shaking their butts. Muhammad prophesied.
It came true. Yep. What are you going to do now?
Problem is, the geniuses don't know the Barbary pirates were Muslims. This is one of those things that should be common knowledge, but isn't. Yeah. I was just saying this the other day, with God Logic and everyone flipping out, and me saying, guys, you might want to learn some. If you're worried about Islam, you might want to learn some basic information about Islam and keep sharing it, because that seems to be the solution to dealing with this long-term solution to dealing with Islam. And I was saying, hey, maybe we need to just put together some basic list of, okay, you're worried about Islam, learn these couple things and share them. You don't have to learn everything, but learn these couple things and share them. We might need a list of basic information that everyone should know and that they don't. We've just forgotten. And it's not emphasized in the education system because it doesn't fit the narrative. And so people spend their entire lives not realizing, these guys were attacking nonstop for 14 centuries. They've been attacking ever since Muhammad came along. The only time they don't attack is when they can't, because they're completely outmatched. That's when they don't attack. And even then, they'll resort to terrorism and things like that. But Robert Spencer's book, The History of Jihad, when you actually go through the history of jihad, the biggest impression it makes on you is that you see how completely relentless it's been since the time of Muhammad. It's just attack. And the only time you stop attacking is to regroup after you've been stopped. And then all of a sudden, you get down to the 21st century. People don't know any of it. They don't know about Muhammad. They don't know about 14 centuries of jihad. And someone comes along and says, hey, you know why they hate us? Just because we're bullies, man. We're bullies. That's the only reason these guys hate us. It's complete idiotic nonsense. Anyway,
that's what they do.
The founder of the Muslim Brotherhood was offended by a 1940s church social in Greeley, Colorado. Smith probably doesn't even know who Sayyid Qutb was. You've probably never heard of that. It's tough to put up with dumb Islam supporters. Yeah, it just sucks when they have big followings and then they say their stupid stuff, and then their stupid fans all think, oh, yeah, they're just mad at us because we're bullying them. That's the only reason. Guys, do you realize, that view was tried under Obama, right? Everyone was saying this before. What Dave Smith is saying right now, everyone started saying it before Obama came along, right? And everyone's saying this. This became the dominant view on the left. The dominant view on the left became, they're just mad at us because we've disrespected them. They feel like they're being bullied. And all you'd have to do is get a new leader to come along and praise them and praise their religion and say, we want a fresh start. And their hearts would melt and they'd walk to you with open arms. That became the message. And it's okay, let's get someone in power who's going to actually do this and give us a fresh start. You got Obama. Obama did what? He goes to Cairo. He gives his Cairo speech where he does what? Islam is great. Islam is wonderful. We've horribly mistreated you for all these years, and we're sorry. We're so sorry. We're so sorry. Let's get it. Let's have a fresh start. A fresh start. And they all cheered, yay! And what'd you get? ISIS. They smelled weakness and they started a caliphate. Freaking idiots, man. How many people died because of that stupid, idiotic plan of, we'll just show them that we respect them and we'll praise their religion and be super nice to them and their hearts will melt. And, of course, we'll get ISIS.
Just a little thing. So somebody just, the super chat just mentioned Sayyid Qutb. Sayyid Qutb was one of the leaders of the Muslim Brotherhood, but he wasn't the founder. Just want to clarify that. The founder was Hassan al-Banna.
Yeah, I did a video about him recently. I think it was in the Tucker Carlson video because he didn't know what. Wait, was it?
Was it?
I did make a video about him recently. I can't remember which one.
But Sayyid Qutb was important. He was also very radical, and he has this very significant book, which I think, you know what, I feel like we never talked about this, but I think it should be added to what everyone should read in order to better understand Islam and better understand Muslims in the world and the Islamic influence in the world, Islamic influence in the West, Hamas, and so on. What is it? Milestones. I think that's. Is it Milestones? I think it's Milestones. Yeah, I have it somewhere here. It's one of his great book, which
he's also got In the Shade of the Quran.
Yeah, it's not great. It is just very well known, but it is a very clear book of subverting societies and undermining societies in order to overthrow them and bring about Islam, and to do so by force. And this ideology is rampant in many Middle Eastern countries, and Middle Eastern countries were smart enough to shut it down and to even execute them and to ban their organizations. But in the West, they are very much still spreading, and Hamas is an extension of the Muslim Brotherhood.
Yep, that's in their charter too. Oh, that's what it was. Yeah. No. Yeah, that's correct. It was in my Tucker video because I actually went through several sections of their founding charter, and that was where they're declaring themselves basically the local chapter of the Muslim Brotherhood. Hey, did you see Capturing Christianity 700s AD Islamic Dilemma? Found it was a video 8 days ago. God bless. Keep walking with Christ. No, I didn't watch the video yet, but I know it exists. I'm definitely going to be watching it because that's an important point. And that's going to be one of the interesting areas in the future that people they weren't using it like a dilemma for when you had a lot of the mentions back in the day, but you did have various Christians over the centuries pointing out to Muslims, hey, why are you attacking our Bible? When your book confirms it. So it would be cool to actually assemble all these. But no, I'll be checking out Cameron's video as soon as I get a chance. Been busy for a few days. First Chronicles 4:8, and Kaz begat Anub and Zabiba. I didn't find Muhammad in the Bible, but I did find Zabiba. See the proof. Someone should make a song. Going like, Zabiba, I got a big Zabiba. Hey fam, hope you are well. Happy Sukkot.
This here, Milestones, Sayyid Qutb. Very important book, very nasty book, but also very important book to understand the Muslim Brotherhood and Muslim influence around the world. Would definitely recommend to understand Islamic influence and Islamic subversion of societies.
How does Dave Smith reconcile the fact that Muslims terrorize their own as well as non-combatants, like what's taking place in Nigeria? Yeah, that's kind of what it's a similar thing. So I'm just talking about, hey, wait a minute. If you're saying the reason they hate you is because you did this to them, and yet they were doing the same thing before you ever did anything to them, probably need to rethink your theory. But he doesn't seem to know about any of that. But also, yes, you could point out, wait a minute. These guys launch terrorist attacks on their rival groups. They blow up each other's mosques. What's going on there? I guess anyway, he seems like he's one of these guys who interprets everything as oppressors and victims and so on. And that's just not good on this topic. Yeah. So how are Nigerian Christians oppressing the Muslims? And that's why Boko Haram is obsessed with slaughtering them and wiping them out. It's like, I mean, dude, look. I mean, wherever Islam is, if you're talking about Islam with Hindus, if you're talking about Islam and Buddhists, if you're talking about Islam and Christians, if you're talking about Islam and Jews, if you're talking about Muslims from one group and another group, terror is always the go-to method. So how are you just saying this is because of the United States of America? Weird stuff, man. Millions in defense before a cent in tribute. That's what they eventually decided. So they're paying piles of money in tribute, and they decided they'd rather pay for defense. Question for both of you: what's your favorite translation when it comes to self-studying? Of what? The Quran, the Bible, what? I'm trying to get as much context and knowledgeable as possible. Praise God and thank you for your ministry. Yeah, what do you mean, Bible or Quran?
Let's just do both.
Bible kind of changes for me depending on what I'm doing. I tend to, if I'm reading, I tend to prefer the more literal translations. Or usually they don't flow as well because you're kind of going like word for word translations. But so that'd be like ESV or NASB. If I'm quoting, I prefer something that's a little smoother. So NIV. So if I'm like speaking somewhere, I might go with NIV. Quran kind of depends on the situation. Depends. Like you've got Qurans that are easier to read, like
Enes
this.
Abdul Halim.
Yeah, that's Halim. That's the Oxford edition of the Quran. Very easy to read. The clear Quran's easy to read, but with that doesn't mean they're the most accurate translations. And then you have, so it kind of depends. Pickthall is like sort of like King James English, tends to be pretty darn accurate. Most recently, I've been reading the Study Quran. That's pretty good. Study Quran's pretty good. I recommend the Study Quran because they have tons of good commentary in there. You have any thoughts on that, AP?
Yeah, for the Bible, I can't really personally recommend any translation.
I've never read it before.
I would leave that to David or others. I personally like the NKJV and the ESV. But for the Quran, I would say Sahih International is for general references, and MAS Abdul Halim if you want to just if you want to get through it, and read it once. It does it makes it smoother to read, but it also makes the Quran sound better than it actually is.
That's true. That's true.
So, and it doesn't fully reflect the Quran as it actually is. I think. I like Sahih International because it is true to how bad the Quran actually is, and how poorly written it actually is. So,
yeah. So, Matthew, also, I normally advise people to study the Quran topically rather than just try to read it right through. And that's not anything against reading the Quran straight through. It's just 95% of people are going to give up halfway through Surah 2.
Yeah.
And so studying, picking a topic you're interested in and then looking up all the Quran passages that talk about that topic and going at it that way, more likely to keep going. With that said, if you do want to read the entire Quran, yeah, I would take AP's advice. I would go with an easy to read translation, even if it's not going to be the most accurate. So something like the Halim translation. Read it through and then mark all the passages that you're interested in, that you're most interested in. Mark all those. And then now that you've got all the passages you're most interested in, then go back and read those in a couple different translations to get a better idea. All right. You ready for their exchange on Islam?
yes.
Ready to have your mind blown?
Yes.
All right. Here we go, guys. Here we go. Coleman Hughes, Dave Smith.
So let's take both of those. One is the sort of why they hate us question. And the second one is the Federal Reserve question. Because I think I'm going to try to follow Rappaport's rules, say where I agree first, and then tell you where I disagree and why I disagree.
Sure.
So when it comes to why, say, Al-Qaeda hated us, I agree they didn't hate us because of our freedom, right? That is a line that does very well with Americans in a political context because we love freedom. But it's also not true that they hate us because of foreign policy grievances that would make sense to say in a secular context. In other words, when Al Qaeda writes its declaration of war on the United States for occupying the Holy Land, what it's complaining about, its main grievance, as evidenced by the fact that it's in the title and dominates the text, as you know, is that we had troops in Saudi Arabia that were there at the invitation of the Saudi government and stayed there for several years with permission from the Saudi government because they were afraid that Saddam might invade Saudi Arabia.
All right, everyone getting that right? So when Al-Qaeda is explaining why they hate us, it's, hey, you've got U.S. troops over here in Saudi Arabia. Why? Because Saudi Arabia wanted U.S. troops there to protect Saudi Arabia from Saddam. And the U.S. usually thinks it's in everyone's best interest if other people protect Saudi Arabia to prevent an arms race in the Middle East, like even with Iran, right? Saudi Arabia said when it comes to Iran getting a nuclear weapon, they said, you guys, the rest of you need to keep them from getting a nuclear weapon because if Iran, this is Saudi Arabia said, if Iran gets a nuclear weapon, we are definitely going to get a nuclear weapon too. We are definitely going to get there's no way we sit here while Iran, who hates us, has a nuclear weapon and we don't. So unless you want the entire Middle East going nuclear, I suggest you deal with this. People kind of often overlook that and think it's just the United States and the Jews opposed to Iran getting nuclear weapons. No, you had Saudi Arabia saying, hey, you other nations, you need to deal with these guys and make sure they do not get nuclear weapons, or you're getting this big buildup here. So anyway, it's been kind of the U.S.'s position where, hey, if they want help guarding them, we will help guarding them. That way they don't start amping up their military, and then we end up with a big more fighting over there than we need. So anyway, what was interesting right there with what Coleman just said. So he's saying, it's not, I agree, it's not because of our freedom. I pointed out, well, it's related. You're not supposed to have the freedom to criticize Islam. You're not supposed to be dressing however you want. They do hate that. They do hate that sort of thing. As far as why they really want to terrorize us and stuff, you have a bunch of reasons combined. But what was interesting was he said, that's the sort of thing that would appeal to Americans, right? They hate you because of your freedom, man. They hate you because of the Constitution. Freedom. They hate you because of that. That's something. And he says, that's something that would appeal to Americans. Wait. That's something that would appeal to a particular kind of Americans, right? And what I wanted to point out is there are other kinds of Americans for whom a different kind of message is going to be appealing. Namely, they hate you because you're so bad and you're mean and you're bullies and you're the oppressors and they're the victims. In other words, that's appealing to, and guess what? That's not true either. So anyway, the point is you can tell people, here's why this group hates you, and different groups will believe different responses just based on what they already think about the world and their attitude towards the United States of America. What's the defining feature of America? Our freedom. So if someone hates us, why is it? Because of our freedom. What's the key feature of the United States? We're horrible bullies and oppressors who just think we're the world police. Okay, why do people hate us? Because we're oppressive bullies who act like the world police. Okay, so that's automatically going to be compelling to you. What's missing from either one of those positions? Actually understanding Islam. Islam. So we're going to make sure everyone understands Islam. We'll actually pull up a couple passages here shortly. Let's let Coleman finish this little spot.
Now, the only way that this is a legitimate grievance is if you add the special ingredient of radical Salafi Islam, which says that Christian crusader troops can't be near the holy sites. And by analogy, you imagine a situation like South Korea, where we...
It's not just, I want to be clear here. So he's interpreting that as Christian crusaders can't be around the holy sites. No, it's actually, if you are a non-Muslim and you are making mischief in a Muslim land, you're causing problems in a Muslim land, which, keep in mind, the land might actually want you there. Like Saudi Arabia might want you there, but if you are not on board with what a particular group's version of Islam says you're supposed to be doing, then they would regard you as making mischief in a land. That's a death penalty. We're going to look at that. That's a death penalty in Islam. That, yes. So in other words, Dave Smith seems to understand, hey, they get ticked off about us being over there. Yeah, they do. But he doesn't understand why it's such a huge issue. Because keep in mind, someone can invite us in saying, hey, come over here, help us out, help us out. You come over and help us out. And they're like, you got to die. Why? Well, there's a reason. There's a reason.
We're invited to put our troops over there during the Korean War. We fought a war. We've kept tens of thousands of troops there for much longer than Saudi Arabia. But there's no South Korean group flying planes into our buildings because they don't have that extra ingredient necessary, which is
Correct.
there's no Korean religion which says American troops can't be in Seoul.
Correct.
So this would be my core critique of the idea that they hate us for as Sam Harris would say, terrestrial grievances.
If now Lex Friedman came into this discussion, he would say, but isn't it true that all religions are just about love?
He would. That's another problem. That's another problem. People thinking all religions are the same and so on. Hey, dude, did you see Trigonometry's video earlier today?
I didn't watch it, but I saw a few seconds of it, and I thought it looks very based, so I reposted it, but I haven't watched it myself yet.
Yeah, and like he has like 2 minutes at the end, which is like a commercial. So the video is only like probably like 4 minutes long as far as the actual content. But no, he makes this awesome analogy, man. He makes this awesome analogy. He's like, what if green apples were just poisonous and red apples were fine? But no one wants to draw any distinction between different kinds of apples. And people are dropping dead from being poisoned by the green apples. But our government's going, nope, all apples are the same. All apples are the same. Let's just bring in more of the all kinds of apples without any sort of distinction. And people are dropping dead and dropping dead and dropping dead because of the green apples. And the government's, nope, all apples are the same. Matter of fact, you're an evil green appleophobe if you say there's any difference between these apples and stuff. Anyway, it's a pretty good analogy he made. But Coleman there made a very good point, which we kind of touched on earlier while going through some comments. But hey, you've got a U.S. military presence in South Korea. South Korea wanted to be protected from communists and so on. Why aren't they launching terrorist attacks against the United States? So the parallel there is Saudi Arabia wanted the United States to protect them from Saddam. We obliged, and then it's used by terrorist groups. See, you guys are messing around in our affairs over here, and you have to die. And his simple point is, doesn't it seem like Islam makes them react differently? You can't just say, oh, it's because we have people over there. If it's just we have people over there, then U.S. soldiers should be getting attacked wherever they are. And we have bases all over the world. So why does Islam react differently? Now we're going to have Dave Smith's awesome theory.
Yeah, I mean, so a couple things on that. I mean, number one, like the comparison, say, to like South Korea is just it's really not a one-to-one comparison. I mean, there's a difference between having a military presence as we do in Germany or in South Korea or in Japan or something like that, where you have these are democracies. These are Western countries that again, I'm not like defending modern nation states.
Wait, so did he just say that the difference is not the religion, it's the difference that these are Western style nations or democracies, and so they're going to be friendlier towards the United States?
He already contradicted himself without even understanding it, because he just pointed out a huge cultural difference there. And the huge cultural difference is a result of the huge cultural difference that Coleman already pointed out. But he's also making a very, very poor analysis. It's as if he's right now comparing South Korea to Afghanistan. That was not the point that Coleman made. It was about the Middle East, about Saudi Arabia, and things like that. So I don't really think that he understood the point.
We'll see. But how dare you assume that Dave Smith doesn't know what he's talking about?
It's or democracy or anything like that, but there is at least somewhat of a free market, somewhat of a democratic situation. The people like participate to some degree in their government. I don't exactly believe that, but at least that's the way the thing is sold. What you're talking about in Saudi Arabia was using military bases. The purpose of the military bases there was for the bombing and blockade campaign against Iraq. And bin Laden, in that letter that you're talking about, laid this out very clearly. Now, I'm certainly not arguing with you that there is like no effect that Islam has on the way that, say, bin Laden or his men were thinking about these things. But if you're talking about, and there's been many books written on this, but if you're talking about like what actually gets people,
many books written on, I can think of one: the Quran, the Hadith, Ibn Ishaq, Tafsir of Ibn Kathir. What books are you talking about that are written on this?
With all due respect, man, with all due respect, I've listened to Dave Smith several times in the past when he talked about different topics, when he talked about the whole Israel-Palestine war, when he talked about different things. It always seemed that he has, on very much every topic, he has only half the information, but he likes to deliver it in such a way that a lot of people seemingly buy it, and I still do not understand why, because I don't get it. I'm not sure what makes people so amazed with it. When I listen to him, I think this is just absolutely horrible, and I have no reason to continue listening to any of this. And but I see that he's very popular online, and that people actually like to follow him around and defend his reasoning. But every single time that he talks about something, it is just full of flaws, and it is lacking in information. Why is he talking about this topic? Why is he talking about the topic of Islam and then acting as if he actually understood the topic? He doesn't know anything about the topic. I've seen him before address the topic of Islam. He doesn't know anything at all about the topic. Like, if you are going to discuss a topic, why don't you sit down and inform yourself about it instead of relying on this person said, that person said, this has been written, that has been written? No, actually sit down and explain it. Maybe explain it to yourself for once to ensure that you actually understand the topic and then go into the discussion about it. If he doesn't understand the topic of Islam at all, I would invite him to actually get in touch with people who do understand it, such as David or myself or others, and we can have a lengthy, deep discussion about Islam and its influence and impact on regional conflicts in the world. This is pure ignorance, and this is not a good way to influence the public. It's
dangerous.
Dangerous.
Yeah. In other words, Dave Smith, if Islam is the primary, see, you can grant everything. You can grant everything else and say, yeah, they are ticked off about us being in their lands and stuff like that. You can grant all that and still understand why Islam is the fundamental problem. And if you're saying Islam's not the fundamental problem, it's not really a problem, much of a problem at all, maybe it influences kind of how they filter this information and stuff, but it's not a real problem. If Islam is the real problem and you're telling people it's not the real problem, you're kind of using your influence to protect a very, very dangerous ideology, which calls for this sort of thing. Hey, AP.
Well,
don't want to go into too much detail right now, but since they're bringing up the topic of being in a Muslim land. All right, guys, what do we have here? Everyone's favorite Quran verse. Every time I think they're going to stop using 532, someone comes out and uses 532 again. It's annoying, man. Every time I think there's no way you're going to bring this up. Now, fortunately, they get ratioed now when they bring up 532. So, guys, 532, Surah 5, verse 32 of the Quran. For years, this was their favorite verse to show that ISIS has nothing to do with Islam and that Islam's a religion of peace and tolerance. And what did they quote? They left out the beginning. They would always leave out the beginning part, and they would just get to start at the end of that first line, and they would say, Islam says that whoever slays a soul, and then they leave out the next part, and then say, it is as though he slew all men. See, that's what Islam teaches. You can't kill in Islam. See, it's a religion of peace. All right, now we'll read the entire verse and the next verse. For this reason did we prescribe to the children of Israel that whoever slays a soul, unless it be for manslaughter or for mischief in the land, so it's allowing, according to this, allowing executing people for manslaughter or, this interesting part, This extremely vague making mischief in the land. Mischief in the land. What's that? What's mischief in the land? Well, it can mean all kinds of things. It is as though, and keep in mind, that's so the main part is from the Talmud, but the Quran adds these things, unless it's for manslaughter or for mischief in the land. It is as though he slew all mankind, and whoever keeps it alive, keeps a person alive, it is as though he kept alive all men, and certainly our apostles came to them with clear arguments, but even after that, many of them certainly act extravagantly in the land. We brought this up many, many times. This is from the Talmud, Mishnah Sanhedrin, and it occurs in a couple other passages. And it was a commentary. It was a commentary from a rabbi about, and you even have the same story right before it in the Quran, but it's the story of Cain and Abel. Cain kills Abel. God says, your brother's blood cries out to me from the ground. A rabbi pointed out that in Hebrew it actually uses the plural. It says bloods, and he made the inference and said, if it's saying bloods, then it's basically saying you didn't just kill Abel, you killed Abel and all of his future descendants. You took out an entire world of people. And therefore, if you kill one man, you're killing all of mankind. Anyway, so that's the basic reasoning there. That's from the Talmud and ends up in the Quran as something that Allah revealed to the children of Israel. But don't miss out the very next verse, which is towards Muslims. The punishment of those who wage war against Allah and his apostle, that's Muhammad, and strive to make mischief in the land. There's that vague crime of making mischief in the land. And strive to make mischief in the land is only this, that they should be murdered or crucified, or their hands and their feet should be cut off on opposite sides, or they should be imprisoned. I think that's a mistranslation there. Almost every other translation says exiled. Or they should be imprisoned. This shall be as a disgrace for them in this world, and in the hereafter they shall have a grievous chastisement.
Based.
Got that? So, waging war against Allah and his apostle. How do you wage war against Allah?
You pick up your sword and throw it up into the sky.
Yes, you throw it. Oh, I threw this at Allah. I've waged war. And strive to make mischief in the land. Guys, you make war against Allah and his apostle and make mischief in the land in a variety of ways, one of which is just opposing Sharia. But anyway, notice here that you have a huge penalty for the crime of making mischief in the land. Making mischief in the land. A land like, let's say, Saudi Arabia. If you're making mischief in the land, what's the penalty? You should be murdered or crucified, or your hands and feet should be cut off, and so on, depending on the severity. Well, guess what? Because it gives different penalties to be applied based on the severity of the mischief you're making. So it could range from murder to crucifixion to body parts being chopped off or just to being exiled. Guess what? Having a non-Muslim military in a Muslim country, interfering with jihadis and so on, that's a pretty extreme form of making mischief in the land. But let's go ahead and check out Ibn Kathir's commentary. So the heading up at the top, the punishment of those who cause mischief in the land. This is commentary on 533. Allah said next, the recompense of those who wage war against Allah and his messenger and do mischief in the land is only that they shall be killed or crucified, or their hands and their feet be cut off on the opposite sides, or be exiled from the land. He says wage war here. So what's it mean to wage war against Allah and Muhammad? What's it mean? What's it mean, Ibn Kathir? Wage war, right there in the middle, guys. Wage war mentioned here means oppose and contradict. In other words, they're saying, hey, here's what you're supposed to do. Here's what you're supposed to believe. Here's the laws you're supposed to follow. And you're like, what? This sounds crazy. Oh, you're waging war against Allah and Muhammad. What's the penalty? You be killed or crucified, or your hands and feet be cut off on opposite sides, or you be exiled from the land. Keep in mind, we think of waging war as marching a military out. That's what waging war is. Now, if you're just, matter of fact, let's go ahead and look at what he says here. Wage war mentioned here means oppose and contradict, and it includes disbelief. blocking roads and spreading fear in the fairways, just not believing properly. So guess what? You have a big military of people who don't believe in Islam. You're already making mischief just by not believing in Islam. Mischief in the land refers to various types of evil. That's why there are various penalties for it. So guys, you follow me here? It's a death penalty or something milder, depending on the severity, but for making mischief in a Muslim land. Now, not according to me, just according to Islamic thinking, according to bin Laden's thinking, was the United States making mischief in Muslim lands?
Yes.
Absolutely, guys. Absolutely, we were making mischief in Muslim lands.
We was.
Just wanted to bring up one additional point about that. So what's the penalty for making mischief in Muslim lands? Death or dismemberment, crucifixion, exile, depending on the severity. I've already pointed out, having a non-Muslim military in there actually calling shots because you have the powerful military in the area and stopping what jihadis want to do and so on. That is a severe form of making mischief in a Muslim land. No, that's a big no-no.
Death penalty. So many choices. Mm-hmm. Kill, exile, crucify, disfigure, and so on. You know?
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful.
So, big penalty for the U.S. military for making mischief in Muslim lands. Just wanted to point out something else for our Dave Smith fans out there. Here we have Sunan ibn Majah. It was narrated from Zayd bin Khalid al-Juhani that the Messenger of Allah said, "Whoever equips a warrior in the cause of Allah, he will have a reward like his, without that detracting from the warrior's reward in the slightest." You guys catch that? Whoever equips a warrior. In other words, there's the warrior, there's the soldier who's going to go out. Now, so in other words, suppose Muhammad says, "Hey guys, we've got a war to fight. We've got a war to fight." And Abdullah here, he's willing to go out and fight, but he doesn't have a sword. He doesn't have any armor. Who's going to help him out? And you've got some businessman who's like, "Well, I don't want to go out and fight, but I will buy him some armor and I'll buy him a sword. So I'm going to equip him to go out and fight." What does Muhammad say? Whoever equips a warrior in the cause of Allah, he will have a reward like his, without that detracting from the warrior's reward in the slightest. In other words, you're just a guy who's got some money. You pay for the person's armor and his weapons. He goes out and fights. He gets the reward of an actual jihadi, but you get the same reward because he couldn't have done it without you. You funded his military expedition for him, and therefore you get the same reward. One more here. This is Sahih al-Bukhari. Allah's messenger said, "He who prepares a ghazi," that's a jihadi, "he who prepares a ghazi going in Allah's cause is given a reward equal to that of a ghazi. And he who looks after properly the dependents of a ghazi going in Allah's cause is given a reward equal to that of a ghazi." So same idea here. If you prepare the jihadi, you fund the jihadi goes out and fights, he's going to get a reward from Allah. But if you actually paid the bills to fund what he did, you get the exact same reward. So in Islam, ladies and gentlemen, it's not just the person who's fighting, it's the person who funded that person so that he can fight, who is equally responsible for that person fighting. Why is this relevant? Well, putting all of this together, since Dave Smith and his fans definitely don't understand it, even though a 5-year-old could get this. Making mischief in a Muslim land. Death sentence if it's a severe type of making mischief in the land. Has the United States made mischief in Muslim lands? Yes, not just in Saudi Arabia by having a military presence there, but by helping Israel, by dropping bombs on various places. The United States military has made a ton of mischief in Muslim lands, according to Islam. What's the penalty for this severe type of mischief making? Death. Death for who?
Yeah.
Death for the American military who do this sort of thing. But according to Muhammad, not according to us, according to Muhammad, the person who pays the bills for the soldier to fight the battle gets the exact same reward. He is equally responsible. The soldiers can't do it without people funding them. So, not according to us, according to Islam, who is ultimately responsible for the soldiers making mischief in the Muslim lands? It's not just the soldiers. They couldn't do it without other people paying the bills for them. Who is also equally responsible for all this mischief that's being made in Muslim lands? Who's equally responsible? Who's paying the bills? Who's funding the entire thing?
The people.
The people. People working and paying their taxes. You work, you pay your taxes go to the U.S. government, who pays the military, which are making mischief in Muslim lands. And so you are equally responsible, according to Islamic principles, you're equally responsible for the mischief as the soldiers, as the military. So who's responsible? U.S. military. Who's also responsible? The U.S. government that's sending in the military. Who's also responsible? The people who are funding the U.S. government.
The taxpayers.
The taxpayers. So when people were saying back then, oh, it's just because of, I could look up the videos, guys. I could look up the talks I gave on this. But if you go back, people were saying, no, they're just mad at us because of this, and they're just mad, blah, 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 blah. And they're saying Islam would never allow the killing of civilians, so the 9/11 attacks, they don't make any sense from an Islamic perspective. It makes perfect sense from an Islamic perspective. And so I responded to all that just by quoting the Muslim sources. I'll say, no, according to Islam, we're making mischief in other lands, in Muslim lands, and it's not just the military, it's also the taxpayers. And so guess what? The people in the World Trade Center, they're all guilty. They're guilty. They're guilty. They're under a death sentence too. So I said that just from the Muslim sources. And then after I gave a talk one day, a guy came up and he said, what you said is exactly what Osama bin Laden said. It's the U.S. taxpayers who are funding what happens in Muslim lands. That's why they're targets. They're fair targets for jihad.
That's brutal.
So, guys, I just want to point out, Dave Smith his position is we've been bullies to Muslims, and Muslims are just sad about it, and so they're lashing out, and it's totally understandable. Coleman Hughes responds by pointing out, wait a minute, the United States was invited to Saudi Arabia to help protect them, and so if you're just saying, well, Osama bin Laden says, oh, you're in a Muslim land, therefore I have to kill you, and you think that's just what anyone would do, well, South Korea wanted our help, and so the United States has had a military presence there. They're not trying to kill us. They're not waging terrorist attacks. So why is it different there? And Dave's response was, but they're more Western now. Korea's more like a Western nation, and these other guys aren't, and that's why they're different. Meanwhile, we look at the Muslim sources. There are commands that you have to kill these people. Right? It's not just, we're reacting. It's our sources say we have to kill them. We open up the Quran and it says you have to kill these guys for making mischief in Muslim lands. Who else are we supposed to kill? If we want to get everyone responsible, we open up the Hadith and find Muhammad saying, and it's not just the soldiers, it's anyone who's funding the soldiers. And then Osama bin Laden and co. say, okay, we will obey Allah. And they do what Allah and Muhammad command you're supposed to do against people who are making mischief in Muslim lands. That's when Dave Smith comes along and says, guys, this isn't about Islam. What are you guys, crazy? Take a couple super chats, and then we'll get more awesome, brilliant insights from Dave Smith. D. Wood, Quran, very easy to read. Miracle confirmed. See? Yeah. I mean, as far as like just reading and not being bogged down in really weird verses. Some are easier than others. With that said, I guarantee you can read an entire chapter of this and then ask yourself, what did I just read? And you will have no clue. And that's with the easy to read ones. So they're easier to read in terms of easier getting through. It's still the Quran, though, so it's terrible.
It is. Horrible. Absolutely horrible.
To Gene about Muslims fighting, Dave would say, the U.S. does the same thing. And why are we the policemen of the world? Typical libertarian jargon. Here's the thing. If you want to be anti-war or libertarian or isolationist or something, you can make that case. Just why are you talking about Islam when you have no clue what you're talking about? And you're completely misleading people about Islam. Shut up about that, or just acknowledge you have no clue what you're talking about, and then make whatever points that you think are actually valid.
Exactly.
I zooted the like button 30 times as thanks. This is why our like button has the strength of 30. I heard this being called the woke right. This idea from the right that the American government is always nefarious and to blame for every country that doesn't like us. Yeah, that used to be a position on the left, and the right was, no, they hate us because our freedoms. But now you have both sides. You have people on both sides. They just hate us because we're so mean. Wild stuff. Is Megyn Kelly soft? You can't call out the left's hypocrisy and then do the same with Tuk Tuk and Candace. I don't get the woke right's demand that IDF stop in some arbitrary time. Did we stop before the Nazis surrendered? I don't know what's going on here. Do you know what this is about, AP? Megyn Kelly?
I don't really know what's with Megyn Kelly. I don't really listen to her. I haven't really heard much of what she said.
She just played your video.
I know she did, and I was very surprised. And she probably now listened to me longer than I ever listened to her, which is quite funny. But no disrespect. When I've seen stuff from her in the past, I thought she looks reasonable and good. You can't call her, but the thing is, she does have some opinions about the current war and all that, and some of those opinions seem a little bit strange and a little bit more in line with the Tucker Candace circle. That said, I don't follow her closely enough to understand what the problem exactly is.
Yeah, so Kamal, we may be checking out some stuff with Candace, especially since now she's playing AP videos. But as of right now, we do not know enough to comment. Muslims hate us because of our bagels. Yeah, that would be funny. Yeah, if you're just gonna make stuff up, right? Like, why are they so mad about Jews? Because the bagels have a pole and it reminds them of the Muhammad on the night of Al-Zut. So they're enraged at Jews. This is also from Kamal. Tuk Tuk must be getting money and talking points from Qatar and Iran. Candace seems possessed. That does seem kind of correct. Tucker sometimes seems possessed as well. The problem I have with some on the right is they entertain these ghouls but play holier than thou with the far left. That is becoming an issue. Like, how do we take you seriously when you're condemning lunatics on the left if you then celebrate and help platform and promote lunatics on the right?
On the right.
Mm-hmm. This is a famous Said Lewis debate. If Muslim views on women and gays didn't derive from colonialism, perhaps their other radical values didn't either. Confirmation bias is a hell of a drug, Dave Smith.
It is.
It sure is.
It is indeed.
Constantine hugging and kissing. That's what he does. Ironic how Dave Smith's show is called Part of the Problem. I noticed that. I didn't know it was a show. On the background, it says Part of the Problem when he's full screen. You can see it. Sarah L. says, hello, dear people. This will be out of nowhere. No problem. But I want to ask for David's help. Please, David, I want to talk to you. You will know how to help me. Please, may I have a private call with you? I think my father is a sociopath. I need your advice. Help. Well, go ahead and email me, Sarah. You can find my email address on my home page. Go ahead and I get a ton of emails, so they kind of get buried, and everyone gets mad at me for not responding. But I mean, I have like, hang on.
Hang on.
I will tell you. I have 215,815 unread messages. So lots of the messages are just along the lines of, David, I'm having a conversation with a Muslim, and the Muslim said this, so what do I respond? And so everyone like wants me to have their conversations for them and stuff. And so anyway, I just don't have time to keep up with all the messages because it's too many of them, and I would never be able to. Even if I tried to respond to like 10%, I would never have time to make a video or anything else.
But I don't have time for you losers. I have more important things to do.
Yes, but on your father being a sociopath, go ahead and message me. No, the point of that was, say in your title, hi, I'm the one who contacted you about my father and stuff. That way I know to pay attention to it, because otherwise it will just get buried. But yeah, I can tell you how to crush him. No, yeah, the first step, Sarah, would be to get your father to know that he has a problem. Because if he was at all like me, he would think that he has an advantage over everyone. And that's bad, because if you think you are superior or have an advantage over everyone, you don't actually want to change or get help for that sort of thing. So that's kind of the first step. AP went from podcasting to comedian, and he's a million times more hilarious than Dave Smith. Not in the zut sense.
I don't like to brag, but I would say that is true. But that said, I could also probably say that almost anyone that I think is mildly funny is funnier than Dave Smith. So.
The Palestinian Authority in Judea and Samaria pays the families of Shahid, the martyrs, and generally provides for them. So straight from the Quran. Yeah, that's true. It's one of the things that they call it, what do they call that? Pay to slay.
Yeah.
Meghan refused to condemn Tucker and Candy for hate on Jews. Well, yeah, it kind of depends on the situation. I don't know how much she knows or what she agrees with them on or something like that. All right. We ready to continue being enlightened by our good friend Dave Smith? Here we go. Dave Smith, everyone.
To sign up to give their life and go kill other people, it's almost always the result of where, like, it almost always comes from a situation where your recruiting shtick, if you're bin Laden trying to get suicide bombers, is to point at all the innocent people who have been killed by this group that you're going after. In fact, even our own FBI, when they do these sting/entrapment runs, where they've done dozens of since 9/11, that's always what they go to them with. Aren't you pissed off about American foreign policy? Don't you have all these grievances about what they do over there? And so, yes, of course, these were radical Islamists. And so everything is filtered through that worldview. And I have no desire to absolve Islam of any problems that it has, certainly not radical Islam. But look, at the end of all of that, what you're still left with is that they do not want our troops in the Arabian Peninsula. They do not want our...
Who doesn't? Saudi Arabia does. Who doesn't? Like why would bin Laden in a completely different area think that he controls what happens in Saudi Arabia and say, oh, people have to die and we can launch terrorist attacks against you in the United States of America because of what you're doing in Saudi Arabia at the request of the government of Saudi Arabia? Why would bin Laden think that he gets to make that call and gets to kill people over that? Because of the Quran, Dave Smith. Yes. Because of the Quran. The Quran tells him, hey, if Saudi Arabia is inviting people in to make mischief in Muslim lands, because even unbelief is mischief in a Muslim land, but having an unbelieving an unbelieving military presence right there in the heart of the Muslim world. That's a death sentence. If Saudi Arabia isn't carrying it out, we have to carry it out. Why? Because Allah commands it. Almost, no, I mean, I don't see how this has anything to do with Islam. I mean, I'm a comedian, so I know best. What are you saying, AP?
This is the funny thing. I mean, he says it himself, but then he misses the point entirely. He just doesn't see it. And the issue is this same problem is currently happening with Israel and Hamas, right? So right now, for example, Israel is fighting a war with Hamas, which Hamas started, by the way, and you have lots of people getting involved in this, despite not being part of this at all. Most of those who first off get involved in this are the Muslims. Muslims usually, as soon as something happens between Israel and the Palestinians, start shouting everywhere that it is their religious duty to stand up against Israel and to stand with the Palestinians. That's how it starts. And then they propagate it, and with their high numbers, propagate to the rest of the world that this is absolutely the most important thing that is going on, although it is not even among the top 3 wars by death tolls that are currently ongoing, which is very, very funny. But then when you have another conflict that is happening in the Middle East, and you have America and a Middle Eastern Muslim country involved, you will suddenly, just like that, get other Muslim nations and other Muslim organizations and other Muslim groups get involved and claim that they now have to step in with drastic measures because of what America is doing in this other Muslim place. That is about Islam. Remember how when we were talking about Korea, we were talking about South Korea, about stationing troops in South Korea? Do you see other nations that are of the same culture or of similar cultures or of similar beliefs? Do you see them step in and say, no, we cannot allow America to station troops in South Korea? As fellow whateverists, we will stand up and we will now fly a bunch of planes into the World Trade Center. It doesn't happen. It only happens with Islam. This whole collectivist idea of Muslims owning everything that happens in Muslim lands and then going very radical in response to non-Muslim presence in Muslim lands, this only happens with Islam. It doesn't happen with other cultures. It doesn't happen with other religions. This is uniquely Islamic. And you can't understand it if you don't understand Islam.
Yeah, so imagine Korea. We're there in Korea. Koreans want us there. And imagine like a bunch of Filipinos like, no, the United States cannot be there. We will kill you. We will go on a killing spree to stop you. Like, why don't you see that, guys? Why is that not a thing? Seems like there are some holes in Dave Smith's narrative. Not in the zit sense, but he's got some problems. Hey, check this out. Hang on one second. This is weird. So Durka says, a brain tumor is funnier than Dave Smith. But then check this out. The abolitionist says, David, I sent you an email. The title says, naked pictures of my grandmother. Please read. Very important. Abolitionist, I assume you're joking, but if you have ever sent me pictures, an email that says naked pictures of your grandmother, there's no scenario where I'm clicking on that email. But we have Recycle Bin Laden here say, can you please forward it to me? I need it for research reasons. All right. Now I'm starting to understand why when I didn't know the language that furries use, that issue came up when we were talking about Tyler Robinson after Charlie Kirk's shooting. And then I found out there were all these weirdo perverts in the chat who are pretty up on all this stuff. Anyway, wild stuff. All right, Dave Smith.
Cases in Saudi Arabia. And it's a fair enough question, even if you're going to say it's some combination of the two, to say, well, why exactly do we need to have those bases there? Why is that? Is that worth the price of dealing with this terrorism issue? And you know, even if Saudi Arabia was concerned that Saddam Hussein was going to invade the country, are there other ways that we could give Saudi Arabia some security guarantees? Are there other ways? Do we really need to be slaughtering Iraqis in a non-war period? So again, look, and by the way, it's not just the military bases. There's a long list of grievances that they have, some that are completely incoherent and just not justified. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, the element of it's the element of American domination over the region that I think is pretty predictably going to lead to resistance.
So a few things. One,
yeah, it is going to lead to resistance.
He just said a bunch of nothing. It's kind of funny.
Yeah. So, he points out that people are mad that the United States comes in and gets to do things, even at the request of people who are there. Yeah. The people. So you basically have three groups. You got three groups, guys, right? So you have one, the group that's trying to do something. So let's say Saddam Hussein invading Kuwait and then threatening to invade Saudi Arabia and stuff like that, right? So that's one thing, right? You have the group that actually is trying to do something. And then you have so they don't want the United States stopping them. Saddam Hussein did not want the United States or anyone else stopping him from doing what he wanted to do. Then you have the groups that actually want the United States to protect them. So that was like Kuwait. Kuwait wanted us to come in there and rescue them. And we did, right? Saudi Arabia. We let Saddam know you're not going to be invading Saudi Arabia. So you have the groups that actually want us to come in and intervene to protect them before someone like Saddam takes over, right? And then you have the Muslims who are saying, nope, the United States has to be out of this. We don't care if someone is going to help this one or that one. It can't be the United States. You need other Muslims helping you in these situations. You don't, under any circumstances, call upon a bunch of kuffar. Even though it's just kind of funny that Bin Laden and everyone was happy to have U.S. support against the communists, and we were happy to support them against the communists and so on. So anyway, this definitely has something to do with Islam, Dave Smith, because who are the ones who are becoming terrorists right there? It's the group that says, these guys can't have anything to do, even if it's requested by a nation, these guys can't have anything to do with our affairs over here. And that is completely religious reasoning. That is because of what Islam commands. They're sitting there going, if Saudi Arabia asks the United States for help and brings in the United States military, they're helping these guys make mischief in Muslim lands. No wonder Saddam wants to go and attack these guys. Oh, boy.
I would say you drew a distinction between a democracy on one hand, like a democracy we have our troops in, and a non-democracy. South Korea wasn't a democracy for a very long time, so I would just point that out.
Fair enough.
In your face, Dave Smith.
What I'm
and
arguing,
they may not be anymore, right?
Yeah. Right. Well, what I'm arguing is more than that. This gets filtered through Islamism. I think the equation, if we were to make a recipe of what makes a terrorist group like Al-Qaeda tick, it has to have all the ingredients. It has to have these grievances, but it also has to have a jihadi ideology that we are not responsible for, right? Because otherwise otherwise the behavior just doesn't make any sense, right? Like another one of their grievances was that
that was kind of annoying. like Coleman will raise an issue, let Dave talk for like 7 minutes, and then as soon as Coleman starts to respond, Dave starts jumping in.
Yeah,
allowed Bosnian Muslims to die for too long in the 90s.
Oh,
right?
This is important, guys. This is important. One of Al-Qaeda's grievances against the United States was that we didn't intervene with Bosnia soon enough. We waited too long, and a bunch of Muslims were killed.
That is very funny because there they are complaining about non-intervention.
Yeah, so if you intervene, you have to die because you're intervening. If you're not intervening when we want you to intervene, then you have to die for not intervening quickly enough. What do you really mean here? You mean we want you doing whatever we agree with at any given time, and if you don't, you have to die. What is that? They're Islamic supremacists who believe they call the shots for everyone in the entire world.
You know what they're actually saying? What they're saying is what you do or do not do doesn't actually matter. We're just looking for excuses to attack you.
That is also true. And so, guys, if they'll say you have to die for intervening, and in the next paragraph say you have to die for not intervening, sounds like they just want you to die.
A jihadi ideology that we are not responsible for,
Well,
right?
what-
Because
Sorry,
otherwise
go
otherwise the behavior just doesn't make any sense, right? Like another one of their grievances was that we allowed Bosnian Muslims to die for too long in the 90s, right? I.e., that we didn't intervene soon enough. Now, all over the world, we don't intervene soon enough. We didn't intervene in Rwanda soon enough. We didn't intervene in Liberia soon enough. We could have saved, in many of these cases, tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of lives. But we don't have Rwandan terrorists flying planes into our buildings. We don't have Liberians blowing up embassies. And so there has to be this additional variable that is the lens through which they interpret all of these foreign policy decisions.
Well,
This guy.
Yeah, I know. He's super sharp, making good points. But yeah. Isn't it interesting, guys? Because I'm not even talking about Islam now. We'll be condemned no matter what we do. If you intervene quickly and save tons of people, well, look at who are you, the world police? If you don't intervene and tons of people die, oh my goodness, what kind of monsters are you? You didn't rush in and help. No matter what happens, you're evil.
Damn if you do, damn if you don't.
So are you saying that? Okay. So, like as I had already mentioned, yes, I don't think all of the grievances are legitimate. That certainly was one that isn't legitimate. But there were
You
several.
should have
other
also
that-
mentioned that grievance contradicted the other grievances, which is why
Yeah.
you should put those other grievances into question.
Yeah, and yeah, maybe you should be sitting there saying, is that their real... Are they being completely honest about their grievances? Is there
Probably not.
something else, perhaps, at work in all of this? Oh, something like Islam?
No. No.
Hey, Dave Smith, check this out. Sahih Muslim. It has been narrated on the authority of Abdullah ibn Umar that the Messenger of Allah said, I have been commanded to fight against who? People. Pretty broad there. I've
What
been
the-
commanded to fight against people till they testify that there is no God but Allah, that Muhammad is the messenger of Allah, and they establish prayer and pay zakat. And if they do it, their blood and property are guaranteed protection on my behalf, except when justified by law, and their affairs rest with Allah. Dave Smith, you've got a prophet, false prophet, but to them a prophet, who says he's been commanded to fight against who? People. Until what? Until they testify that there's no God but Allah, that Muhammad is the messenger of Allah. Could it ever cross your mind that maybe the underlying fundamental reason for these terrorist groups hating the United States of America and so on is, one, because the United States is a place that's supposed to be violently subjugated according to the command of Muhammad, but also that the United States regularly stops you from subjugating people. They stop you from carrying out Muhammad's command to violently subjugate the world. So the United States, one, they're unbelievers. They're supposed to be violently subjugated. They haven't been violently subjugated, and we refuse to be violently subjugated. But also, we keep intervening in places around the world that stop you terrorists from violently subjugating other people. Could that be the underlying fundamental reason they hate us? And could other things, oh, you didn't intervene here fast enough. Oh, here you intervened. Shame on you. Could this other stuff be mere sort of symptoms of the real underlying issue?
What?
can't-
No.
No, can't have anything to do with Islam, right? It's not about Islam. All right, back
Depends
to
on what Ron Paul said.
Yeah, well, that's not what Ron Paul says. He says we're just mean to them.
I think are. But is what exactly when you're saying they need to have this Muslim element to it as well in order for what? Like in order to do terrorism?
Yeah,
you're saying?
to justify killing civilians on the basis of these other things. In other
Yeah,
words,
I mean,
Guys, remember we looked and understand completely now the justification for killing civilians in Islam. The military Making mischief in Muslim lands. Who's funding the military? Civilians. What's the penalty for making mischief in Muslim land? Death. What's the penalty for people who fund it? Exact same penalty, because they're the ones making it possible. What's the penalty for the civilians? Death. So that's exactly what you see in the Muslim sources, and guess what? It's exactly what bin Laden said. And somehow we can't figure out the connection to Islam here. It's so confusing.
Probably nothing to do with Islam.
No, definitely not. Dave Smith says so, and he's the expert here.
No, there were Irish terrorists, there were Jewish terrorists, of course, as you know, in the lead up to the creation of the state of Israel. There's been terrorists.
Right, but those were local ethnic disputes between the Irish and the British, between the Jewish and the Palestinians. What justifies going abroad, flying planes into buildings thousands of miles away, except for the fact that they interpret all of these foreign policy actions that we do everywhere? We station troops in South Korea. They don't fly into our buildings, right?
Yeah,
they don't have that additional religious element.
Yeah. So how did Coleman catch on? And Dave Smith seems completely incapable of understanding such a simple point. But I mean, think about this. Dave Smith is basically, it's not quite the Dawa script because he had politicians and journalists running this, but he's running a script from like 2006, 2007. Oh, you're saying terrorism has something to do with Islam? What about the IRA? Oh, what about Westboro Baptist Church? They're not terrorists, but they're really mean. So all religions have their weirdos and their radicals. Yeah. And how do you not spot the differences? Couple of main differences. If what happened in Ireland was really something that emerged from Christianity, wouldn't you expect to see it kind of all over the place where Christians anywhere are in anything remotely resembling similar circumstances? Same with Westboro Baptist Church. Oh, but look at Westboro Baptist Church. Okay, do you see other people doing exactly what Westboro Baptist Church did? No, because there's nothing about like protesting soldiers' funerals and stuff like that. It's some weird local thing that's a group decided on. And it doesn't emerge in other places because other people, it's not emerging from the ideology or the religion. So there's that. But then so you have, if it's actually emerging from the religion, why don't you see it popping up all over the place? But two, once it does pop up, why don't you see people flooding in there from all over the world? In other words, once you have Westboro Baptist Church and like, these guys are doing it, why don't you see people flooding from around the world, all going to join that movement? As you do in Islam. You'll have people born in the United States and then they go join the Taliban or they go join Al-Shabaab or something like that. You saw people from around the world. You saw Muslims from around the world running to join ISIS. Why was that? It's not some local random thing. Someone sets it off and you find out there were people around the world who thought the exact same thing, were waiting for it to start. How do you not see the difference when you go, well, all religions have their terrorists here? Are you stupid?
Yes.
Definitely seems stupid. Or clueless.
But doesn't really prove anything. Like if you were going to say, if there's, let's say there was like a husband, he comes home, his wife is in bed with another man, he pulls out his gun, he murders both of them. And you were to say, I think the motivating factor here is that she was having an affair, cheating on him. And then you were to say, well, I know another situation where a guy was being cheated on and he didn't murder both of them. Like, okay, that still doesn't prove that that's not the motivating factor here. And it doesn't even prove that there's any needed extra element other than sometimes it goes this way and sometimes it doesn't. But the idea of like, I mean, if we're just playing out this hypothetical, if you put the shoe on the other foot and you imagine that China, no, let's just say like China had.
This is terrible, Dave.
I am having this moment right now, which happens rarely when somebody says something really stupid, where it just sounds incredibly, ridiculously stupid, and I can't even say, I can't even tell why, because that's how dumb it is.
Yeah, I know why it sounds stupid.
The analogy is so ridiculously stupid, and I can't even put into words why, but it's just so obvious because it's just such a poor analogy. Gosh.
Yes. So, guys, just to understand the analogy, and then I'll point out why it's terrible and stupid. So, Coleman points out, well, hey, if the problem's not Islam, how do you explain the fact that the sort of response that we see from these Muslim groups, you don't have widespread same response that you among non-Muslim groups. So it seems like Islam is the factor that emerges from a ton of these terrorist groups. And then Dave Smith's response is, well, some people just react differently, right? And so a guy catches his wife in bed with another guy. He kills them both. You say, why did he kill them? Because my wife's cheating on me with this guy, and so I killed them both. Well, that doesn't mean another guy's going to react the exact same way, right? Therefore, you can't say the Muslims aren't reacting because the West is a bunch of bullies or the United States is a bunch of bullies. You can't say that. You can't say just because Korea doesn't react in the same way, therefore Muslims aren't reacting because of that. You can't say it. So in other words, you can't say that Islam is the missing factor, because there doesn't have to be a missing factor. Different people can just react in completely different ways. Now, what's the problem here again? Why is it that Muslims in Nigeria come to the conclusion about what they're supposed to do, and they come to the exact same conclusion about what they're supposed to do that Muslims in Somalia come to, and that they come to the same conclusions that Muslims in Gaza and the West Bank and Iran and Afghanistan and Pakistan, they all come to the same conclusion about how they're supposed to react. Terrorism. That's the go-to method. Why are they all coming to that exact same conclusion? I did want to point out something as well, because here's the thing. Dave Smith is correct to this small extent. Namely, terrorism is something that anyone could come up with. Terrorism is a tactic, right? Terrorism is a tactic. Anyone can use terrorism, and tons of people, tons of groups over the years have used terrorism as a tactic. And so his mentality is, okay, if Muslims are launching terrorist attacks, well, why are you going to say that has something to do with Islam when other groups have launched terrorist attacks before? Okay, something can be promoted and encouraged in one ideology that's not promoted or advocated in a different ideology, and yet someone from the different ideology could use the tactic. And so just to give the parallel here, when you look at the various studies on, let's say, the treatment of women in various parts of the world, the vast majority of the worst places in the world, based on whatever criteria people come up with to examine, the worst places in the world for women are Muslim majority countries. It'll be like there was one where it was 11 of the 12 worst countries in the world were for women were Muslim majority countries. I saw another one where it was 18 of 20 of the worst countries in the world for women were Muslim majority countries. So imagine you point out the criteria to Dave of why these places are considered terrible for women. Oh, because women are beaten there, because they have high levels of child marriage there, because they don't give women many opportunities for education and so on. You say, so suppose you bring up some of these, right? Like, hey, there are high levels of beating women into submission in certain countries. We think that has something to do with Islam, because if you're talking 18 of the 20 worst countries in the world, that seems like a pattern there. Dave Smith would say, what are you talking about? People beat women all the time. Yes. Yeah. People you can come from a Christian background and beat your wife. You can come from a Jewish background, an atheist background. You can do all this. It can happen. It is promoted in one religion, which is why it happens way more frequently in that religion, right? Islam. And Dave, if you're not familiar with this, Surah 4, verse 34, if you fear rebellion from your wife, you warn her, banish her to a separate bed, and beat her. That's what you do. And so you actually have a command from God telling you to do this. So guess what? Anyone could do it. In most places, it's discouraged. It's discouraged. Don't beat your wife. In Islam, of course you beat your wife. Of course you're going to beat your wife. You're supposed to. You have a command from God to beat your wife if you fear rebellion from her. So could Islam actually account for why this bad thing that happens a lot more in the Muslim world? Could that be part of it? Could that be part of it? So anyway, it's just really sloppy thinking to say, wow, why do they have this big problem with abusing women in this certain way? And you say, why is there this problem? We think it's connected to Islam. No, because other people can beat their wives too. Yeah, why is it way more common in the Muslim world? Why? Why? Could it be because in this part of the world, you have a command from God telling you that that's a cool thing to do? Well, now apply the same reasoning to terrorism. Yeah, you've got the IRA. Why doesn't that take off? Because most places discourage that sort of thing. There is a religion that props up and promotes it, especially with a prophet who said that his key to success, that the reason he was successful is, he said it, it's in Bukhari, he said, I have been made victorious with terror. Terror is what made him victorious. And so, this guy's just a dope, man. He doesn't know what he's talking about. Well, he's not a dope. He does, he's intelligent and so on. He just has no clue what he's talking about. And he's got talking points from 20 years ago.
He's a dope.
Overthrown our government and propped up a dictator and then started, occupying us or putting military bases in America, I think there'd be some Americans who would be grabbing their guns and they would become terrorists in the eyes of this new ruling regime. And I bet they'd be screaming about Jesus while they did it. So I don't actually think that's right. The Irish became terrorists against the British because they were the ones who they had a beef with. Now, if you're saying, well, why do they come halfway around the world as if that's some huge different factor? It's like, because I guess America is the world empire and we are really the final.
Yeah, it is a huge.
It's a huge factor, and you leave out one. The most important factor here, which is not that they come across the world to America, but rather that they come to America for a conflict that is far away from them geographically, that has nothing to do with them except religion. You're leaving out that factor, Dave Smith. You just don't get it.
Sovereign over all of this area, and there are airplanes now. So I don't think there's anything like, again, I'm not trying to absolve Islam of any responsibility that they might have. I think we're losing
contact with with these analogies because we're talking about a situation where mostly Saudis flew planes into our buildings, and we had the permission of the Saudi government to be there, right? So we're not talking about a situation where we overthrew the regime in Saudi Arabia and now the Saudis are pissed.
This guy's good because so Dave Smith just pointed out in his response to, hey, why are Muslims going around doing the terrorizing here? And well, just imagine if another nation came in and conquered the United States and subjugated us, I think you'd get some people trying to fight back and they would be called terrorists. So if you could understand how we could become terrorists, why can't you understand why they could become terrorists and so on? And then Coleman just instantly points out, we didn't go over and conquer Saudi Arabia, and then they were freedom fighters trying to fight us to get us out. We were there at their request, and these other guys decided we had to die for helping their government that asked us to come help them the government was asking us to help them not be subjugated by another country. We helped them. How is this a parallel? So I guess if you wanted the parallel, it would be like suppose some foreign nation wanted to come and attack the United States of America to subjugate us, and we asked someone else for help. Hey, I can't think of who would help the United States, but let's imagine it's a different century, and we say, hey, UK, come help us. We need your help to protect us. And so the UK comes and helps protect us from this invading nation. And then imagine a bunch of Christians are like, no, we have to kill these British people for coming and helping us. That would be the parallel. Like what basis would you have for saying these British people are trying to help us at the request of our government, therefore they need to die? Where would you be getting that from? You wouldn't be getting it from Christianity. Where would that idea be coming from? Islam has that idea. You are a bunch of unbelievers. You don't get to be involved in this sort of thing unless it's something we really want you involved in, like Bosnia. But let's
see how in response to the whole rambling by Dave Smith, this is of course the first objection, the first question that immediately comes to mind, that comes to Coleman's mind, that comes to our mind, that just came to my mind, which is why I stated it. But Dave Smith can't think about it, and he can't understand the argument. He doesn't really understand the comparison. He doesn't understand the problem. He doesn't understand that the problem here is not that you are at conflict with a certain group and that certain group then starts losing it and attacking you, but rather that you are at conflict with one group and then a different group far away, because they have something in common with that group that you are in conflict with, starts attacking you from across the world. That only happens with Islam, and he doesn't understand it. He keeps distracting from the point and losing it with these false analogies. Why can't he just admit it?
Yeah, this is actually, again, I haven't seen much Dave Smith, but this is like really sloppy and dangerous. It's like, if you don't want to be sloppy on stuff where it's actually dangerous. But I mean, seriously, this was what he was saying was standard on the left 20 years ago. Obama came to power and he put this theory to the test. I'm going to put this theory to the test. We're going to go and we're going to praise their religion. We're going to talk about how much we love their prophet. And I'm going to say, peace be upon him when I talk about their prophet. I'm going to say, we want a fresh start and we're here to help you. And it blew up in his face. Completely. And you ended up with ISIS. So like everyone else is, guess what? That's when I stopped hearing that. That's when I stopped hearing that so much. Then they stopped saying, oh, if we just went and, if we just went and we respected them and we said, we love your prophet and we want to help you and we apologize for being bullies in the past, their hearts will melt and they'll walk out and embrace us. That was the theory. Okay, tried it. Didn't work at all. Blew up in the face. Seems like you should stop using the theory then. And all of a sudden, Dave Smith is popularizing it now again. It's all because of us, guys. All because of us. All right, back to Coleman.
Oh, we gotta listen to what Ron Paul said.
Well, I was 27. I saw Ron Paul, and I was like, oh man, this guy knows everything about Islam. So I'll just go with whatever he says. He says they're just mad because we're bullies. Okay. Doesn't make sense of 14 centuries of Islam. Nothing. What you said makes zero sense. And you still cling to it. Stop being stupid. All right, here we go.
To be there, right? So we're not talking about a situation where we overthrew the regime in Saudi Arabia and now the Saudis are pissed. We're talking about a situation where we had every right and the invitation of the Saudi regime, and there is this terrorist veto. And I guess one of my questions to you is that if we live in a system of nation states, if the whole, liberal international order is to work, it has to mean that we can't take the veto of a terrorist organization within a country to mean more than the word of the head of state that says, actually, we have an agreement. They want us to be here. The king of your country wants us to be here. We have his permission. You don't get to veto us being here by killing civilians.
Actually, good point there. He's saying, hey, we're a nation. There's another nation. We can't take the decisions of terrorist groups as like, we can't say, oh, the terrorists call the shots and who cares what the actual heads of state say. Because is that what Dave's saying?
According to Dave Smith, that's a very legitimate objection. So,
yeah, I mean, so think about this, guys. Hey, we've got Saddam. He really wants to come and invade us, and we don't want to amp up military because that's going to make everyone nervous if we're all like having an arms race over here. So if you guys don't want us to have this big arms race, you'll need to make sure he doesn't invade us. And we're totally fine if you do that. If that's the way you want to go, you want to keep us from getting in an arms race and all out war, and you just want to threaten them and say, hey, the United States is here. Fine, please do that. Please do that. And we say, okay, but no, you've got Osama bin Laden. He says, no, you can't do that.
Oh, again, sorry,
what's
guys.
What's his basis?
Sorry, King of Saudi Arabia. Osama bin Laden just said we can't do that, so therefore we can't come to your country and help you out. Sorry, we have to listen to the terrorists. I hope you agree with this, Dave Smith.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I totally agree with that. Of course. This is exactly what Ron Paul would want. Yeah.
Yeah. So the big issue there is what, Dave Smith, what makes Osama bin Laden think that he gets to call the shots even over the Saudi government, that the Saudi government can say, here's what we want, and he can say, no, you are not allowed to do that at all. Islam. What makes him think that? What was it, AP?
Islam
allows you to say, hey, you can't be bringing in people to make mischief in a Muslim land. You can't do that. If you do, you're wrong. And so I don't care what the Saudi government says. They're wrong according to Islam. But Islam isn't responsible for this, according to Dave Smith. Super genius. All right.
Yeah. Okay. So just to be clear, you're right. We're mixing up things here a little bit. Yeah. No, I'm not claiming that America overthrew the government of Saudi Arabia. I guess it's just the point I'm making is we're getting into like whether radical Islam, how much of a necessary ingredient that really is. And so I was just saying, like, imagine some faraway power overthrew our government. But yeah, we did overthrow the government of Iran, Iraq, Libya, Syria.
Okay, just to be clear.
This guy is so terrible at thinking and arguing, man.
Yeah.
That was the entire point. That was part of the point. That question came up because it was part of the argument. Because you had to find out what exactly the reason is that a terrorist organization that happens to be Muslim takes out and wants to attack you over your involvement and your collaboration with Saudi Arabia. That is where Islam came up. That is where Islam came into the equation, because you have to think about it and have to think whether that could be the factor that you're missing in order to explain this intervention from far across the map. Now he doesn't get it. He's like, oh yeah, I got mixed up because we talked about Islam. But anyway.
Yeah, but there are these other places where we've really interfered in their politics. And what have we done there? What did we do according to Islam? We made mischief in their land.
Mischief.
Yeah. And so you're saying, well, it has nothing to do with Islam. It's about us causing problems for them and making them react in this way. And it's just amazing. Again, Dave Smith, were they attacking even before we did any of that? Yeah, they were. And they said why? And they said it's because of Islam. They said it's because of what our book says. That's what they said. And here's the crazy thing. When the United States is interfering in other countries and saying we want a regime change and so on, it's not just random. Right? It's like, it's very frequently, Islam is causing a big problem over here, and it's going to end up being a big problem elsewhere in the world. And so we're going to try and stop it there. And then so you do it, and they say, oh, see, the reason they hate you is because of that. No, the reason we're intervening is because we understand there's a problem that is a danger to other places, and we're trying to stop it. In other words, Islam keeps causing problems. Different nations try, sometimes completely fail, sometimes do something incredibly screwed up and so on. But they're trying to deal with the problems that keep emerging from Islam. And then you say, oh, they're just mad at us because we keep interfering. Well, yes, they are mad because we're interfering, but it's because they're trying to subjugate the world and we're stopping them. And they're really, really mad at us because of that. Why? Why? They're not. Let me put it this way. If you think they're just trying to mind their own business and they're just sitting around, they're eating their falafel, and we just go in and start attacking them, and then they're just reacting, okay, that's nonsense. That's nonsense. If you want to say, hey, we're kind of leaders various leaders over many decades are coming up with different ways of trying to deal with all this stuff that keeps arising in the Muslim world, and that Muslims get mad about it when we interfere with what they're doing, yeah, that's true. But to say it doesn't have anything to do with Islam, or that Islam just isn't an important factor, is just beyond idiotic, and you should stop talking about Islam ever. You might, again, I've not seen a lot of Dave Smith. He may be correct on every other thing he's ever said in his entire life. Here, he has no clue what he's talking about, and it's dangerous because he's misleading his dumb followers.
There is no world where Muslims just want to mind their own business, and things just begin happening to them. That is just not how it is. This is why you need to inform yourself about Islam. If you want to have these conversations, and if you want to talk about Islam as a factor, whether it is a factor or not, you need to inform yourself about Islam. If you did inform yourself about Islam, you would understand that a religious movement, a religious Islamic movement, would not be interested in simply living their lives and developing their lives and minding their own business and all that. No, they are very much interested in expansionism in different ways, whether it is through will or force, whether it is through preaching or through forcing those who are part of it to stay part of it, whether it is through suicide bombings, whether it is through wars, whatever it is. This is simply part of Islam. You have to understand Islam in order to understand that Islam fundamentally has this aggressive expansionist aspect, which is what led to the rise of Islam from the very beginning. if you did understand this, you would probably also understand that it is very easy to rile up Muslims simply by existing.
Let's read a quick passage, AP. We've already read a little bit. We've already checked out the Quran. We checked out Surah 5, verses 32 to 33. Went to the commentary of Ibn Kathir, just to show we're not making stuff up. But here's a fun little passage here. So, Dave Smith, you want to learn a verse? Check out Surah 9, verse 29 there, right in the middle. Ooh. Fight those who do not believe in Allah. Notice it doesn't say fight people who are oppressing you. Fight those who do not believe. This is about what you believe. Fight those who do not believe in Allah, nor in the latter day, nor do they prohibit what Allah and His apostle have prohibited. You're supposed to fight people if they do not prohibit what Allah and His apostle have prohibited. Remember the issue of freedom that came up? So if your country says it's perfectly acceptable to make fun of Islam, and your country says women can wear miniskirts, have you prohibited what Allah and His apostle have prohibited? No.
Nope.
So you can say it's connected to them having a problem with freedoms, but specifically because of what the Quran says. So it is an Islamic issue. So nor do they prohibit what Allah and His apostle have prohibited, nor follow the religion of truth, Islam, out of those who have been given the book, Jews and Christians, until they pay the tax, jizya, in acknowledgement of superiority, and they are in a state of subjection. Are you getting this, Dave Smith fans? This is a command to fight people, including Jews and Christians, until we acknowledge the superiority of Muslims and Islam by paying tribute money called jizya. What did the Barbary pirates want? When did they agree to leave us alone? When we were paying them tribute money.
They said, "Give us all your jizya."
Yep. So until they pay the tax in acknowledgement of superiority, and they are in a state of subjection. Dave Smith, we are supposed to be subjected to them. We're not. That's what enrages them. That's what ticks them off, right? Every time we interfere in their political affairs or something like that, it's a constant reminder that we are not subject. We haven't been subjugated. And they are weaker, and it's not the way things are supposed to be according to Islam. Now, if Dave is running talking points from 20 years ago, the first thing he will say is, but in context, this must mean something completely different. Okay, the context starts in the previous verse. Let's read the entire context, Dave Smith. Surah 9, verse 28. Surah 9, verse 28. O you who believe, the idolaters are nothing but unclean, so they shall not approach the sacred mosque after this year. So this is basically the polytheists used to take a pilgrimage to Mecca. They were not allowed to take the pilgrimage to Mecca after this. They said, no more polytheists coming to this. So keep in mind, the Kaaba was a pagan, polytheistic center of worship. Muhammad conquered it and then said, yep, no more of the pagan stuff here. So they took over their place of worship and then said, now you don't get to come here anymore. So anyway, the idolaters are nothing but unclean, so they shall not approach the sacred mosque after this year. And if you fear poverty, because you had trade deals and so on with these polytheists, and now you're upsetting them, they're not going to want to have deals with you anymore. And if you fear poverty, then Allah will enrich you out of His grace, if He please. Surely Allah is knowing, wise. Okay, so you're going to lose money from the polytheists because you're separating from them and you're not interacting with them anymore. Okay, well, we're going to lose money. So how are we going to make money? It says, don't worry about losing money from these guys. Allah will enrich you out of His grace. How's He going to enrich them if they're losing all this money? Next verse, Dave Smith. You're going to fight those who do not believe in Allah, nor in the latter day, nor do they prohibit what Allah and His apostle have prohibited, nor follow the religion of truth, out of those who have been given the book, Jews and Christians, until they pay the tax, the jizya, in acknowledgement of superiority, and they are in a state of subjection. We're losing money from the polytheists. How are we going to make that money back? We're going to fight the Jews and Christians until Jews and Christians agree to pay us tribute money to avoid being attacked. Are we moving too fast for you, Dave?
Muslims are supposed to be in charge. They're supposed to be in control. They're supposed to take control of the place. And if there are disbelievers in that place, Muslims, in order to satisfy their needs, have to extract all the jizya from the disbelievers. They give me all their jizya. I want
all the jizya.
I want all their jizya. Give it all to me.
Shower us. You have to shower us in jizya.
Shower me in your jizya. So that's what they have to do in order to get rich and to take care of themselves. This is inherent to Islam. It's fundamental to Islam.
So, Dave Smith, before the United States even existed, long before me or AP were ever born, there was a standing command to fight those who do not believe in Allah. Specifically refers to people of the book, Jews and Christians, that the fighting only ceases when we acknowledge the superiority of Muslims and we pay them money. That's when they're not supposed to fight us anymore, right? Now, you might be saying, well, maybe this is about people attacking Muslims and so on. No, because you have the condemnations that justify violently subjugating us in the verses that come right after it. So check out 930. What have we done? What have we done? Were we attacking Muslims, killing them? Is that why they're supposed to fight us? What's the condemnation of Jews and Christians? Verse 930. And the Jews say, Uzair, that's Ezra, Uzair is the son of Allah. And the Christians say, the Messiah is the son of Allah. These are the words of their mouths. They imitate the saying of those who disbelieved before. May Allah destroy them how they are turned away. Why is the Quran calling for Allah to destroy us? Because of the words of our mouths, our speech. What's that about them having no problem with our freedom of speech? We have to be destroyed by Allah because of what we say with our mouths. In the context of Christians, we say that Jesus is the Messiah and that he's the Son of God. And the condemnation of Jews is something no Jew has ever said. Ezra is the son of Allah. They have taken have we done anything else? Next verse, 31. They have taken their doctors of law and their monks for lords besides Allah, and also the Messiah, son of Mary, and they were enjoined that they should serve one God only. There is no God but he, far from his glory, be what they set up with him. Be what they set up with him. Has there been one word about Jews and Christians oppressing Muslims and attacking Muslims and attacking Muslim countries? One word about it. What is every complaint about us? It's about our basic religious beliefs and practices. Every single one. Why do they hate us? Oh, because we're oppressing them and we're bullies. They hated us before we did anything to them. But maybe there's something else. Okay. Verse 32. What else do we do? They desire to put out the light of Allah with their mouths. This is talking about what we say. What was the condemnation? Jews say Ezra is the son of Allah. Christians say the Messiah is the son of Allah. It's what we preach. It's what we say. They desire to put out the light of Allah with their mouths. That's what Allah has a problem with. It's what we say. And Allah will not consent save to perfect his light, though the unbelievers are averse. You getting this, Dave Smith? We say Jesus is Lord, and thus we're trying to put out the light of Allah with our mouths. Allah will not allow us to put out his light. Okay, how's he going to stop us, Dave Smith? How's Allah? It says right there, we're trying to put out the light of Allah with what we say. We're trying to put out the light of Allah with what we say. The Quran says Allah's not going to allow it. How is he going to stop us? How is he going to stop us from speaking? Next verse and the conclusion of this entire passage. He, Allah, he it is who sent his apostle, Muhammad, with guidance and the religion of truth, that he might cause it to prevail over all religions, though the polytheists may be averse. What is this entire passage? You guys are saying things and believing the wrong things, and you have to be subjugated until you're silenced, until you no longer say these things. Okay, how's Allah going to do that? He sent Muhammad with Islam, that he might cause it to prevail over all religions. What did 929 say? Until we're subjugated. But this has nothing to do with what's going on, right? Dave Smith, nothing? AP, I can't figure out why you like this guy so much, man. Guy has no clue what he's talking about, and he's convincing everyone else to be as stupid as he is on this issue.
I just find it funny that after the whole gave me all the jizya, the bit about they want to put out my light with their mouths. Sounds kind of weird.
I know. I was trying to avoid such silly thinking. Isn't it crazy, though?
Yep.
Islam said it a long time ago. What's the real reason Osama bin Laden, all these other guys hated us? They're supposed to be in charge. We're supposed to be subjugated. We're not subjugated. That enrages them. It's like a big slap in the face to their entire religion. And you got Dave Smith. No, just because we're bullies. That's the real source. Just because we're bullies. I heard it from Ron Paul, the world-renowned religious scholar, Ron Paul, world expert, the author of the 35-volume commentary on the history of Jihad. Ron Paul, he knows everything. My goodness, man.
It's pretty bad.
It's pretty bad.
Yeah, Yemen, we've done quite a bit of overthrowing governments in that portion of the region, many in the last few decades. And so, look, I mean, to say that you have, I don't exactly know, where, at least the claim, I'm a radical libertarian here, man. So I really don't believe in much of government being legitimate at all. But the idea that, I think the general view of things is that we view the legitimacy of government as being derived from the people. That I don't think actually makes any sense, but that's kind of the belief in the Western world. I don't know what the invitation of the Saudi government means in terms of legitimacy. So we have a right to be there. Yes, the dictatorship that we prop up and keep in power allowed us to be there. So I guess that's true. No, I'm not suggesting
dictatorship of Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, the government the dictatorship allowed us to be there, but I mean, we should have listened to the terrorists.
This is not what happened in Saudi Arabia, bro. You have no idea what you're talking about. This is the problem with libertarians.
What? They're too smart?
It's always the same dumb talk of, oh, well, we're just going around and telling people what to do, and, just let them decide what they want to do. And, every government ever in the world that was probably installed by America, and, why can't we just let the people decide what they want to do? And something happened in the world, it's probably our fault. We got to stop meddling with all these other people that just want to exist. Can you please shut up?
Terrorists should get a veto. If we are doing something that is moral, that is correct, and that is within the interest of the United States of America, and that comes with the price that terrorists are going to be mad at us and want to attack us, well then, I don't think we should just allow them to bully us out of doing that. In other words, if the terrorists actually had a problem with the fact that America is just such a darn free place, and wanted to attack us for that, well, then we got to fight them. Screw that. We're not going to allow terrorists to have veto power over what we do.
Why is Dave Smith calling for war? Oh, why is he such a war hawk?
Why is he getting back to that talking point again? he makes no sense. I really do not understand what makes people listen to this guy. He is completely out of his depth, and he completely abandoned the discussion and went back to the earlier talking point, which has nothing to do with the current one anymore.
I think is that if you recognize that this policy comes with the cost of these people hating you so much, maybe we should re-examine this policy. And we can sit here and say, look, in the same sense that if all the propaganda that Joseph Stalin used to put out about how racist America was, which he loved that. And he would put out all his propaganda about how horrible black people were treated in the South in America. And, now any of us could look at this and be like, okay, the biggest hypocrite in the world, Joseph Stalin, you care about human rights or something like that. But that at the same time, that doesn't mean you don't go, you know what? It is actually pretty messed up the way we're treating black people in America. Maybe we ought to examine that. That's not me giving Stalin veto power over American policy. It's just pointing out that, number one, if you were in the Cold War space, you're giving them a giant propaganda talking point here. And it's also a bad policy. It's wrong what you're doing. So yeah, you should stop that. I've heard it argued by some.
Okay, wait a minute. So Joseph Stalin was just propagating certain things, and he was just hypocritically using those talking points for his own purposes. He actually didn't properly, or in a just way, acknowledge that we as Americans have problems which he is in a position to fix. Therefore, he's criticizing that. So he was just using talking points in order to justify his hate and his global policies. Okay, good. Now the same thing is true for the Taliban, and sorry, the same thing is true for Al Qaeda, and they hate us because of Islam. And they were just using fake talking points, like the issue of Saudi Arabia, in order to justify their Islamic hate. There you go. Problem solved, Dave Smith.
Yeah, so what Dave Smith was, the point of his little analogy there is that just as you can point out, yes, of course, Stalin is just saying this stuff for propaganda purposes. Well, the fact that Stalin is saying it doesn't mean that there's not an actual problem. And therefore you can say, hey, we know he's just running his mouth because he'll use anything. But maybe there is something here that we need to work on. So the parallel there, it seems like, is, okay, yeah, maybe these guys are just using these maybe the terrorists are using these talking points and complaining about this or that. That doesn't mean we don't have a problem here. What's the problem? That we keep interfering in what's going on in other places in the world. Now, here's the thing. Guess what? If you don't think that Islam seriously got a problem, you would be wondering, why are we interfering in all these places? If you understand that Islam is an ideology that calls for your violent subjugation and encourages its adherents to relentlessly seek the overarching goal of subjugating you, you might want to be on guard against it, right? You might want to be proactive in dealing with the sort of in dealing with the situation. It's not going to go perfectly. Things never do. So you're going to be like, oh, well, I think it's in our best interest to do this in this country and stuff. Sometimes it's not going to work out very well. Well, what's the idea? We'll just crawl over here and let Islam just what? Just take over until we're like the last nation standing, and then we have to deal with the entire world? Weird.
But once again, he inadvertently, without knowing, actually made the point that Coleman was making the entire time about Al Qaeda. So by the problem is not that Al Qaeda might have legitimate grievances about America. The problem is not that they might be pointing out things that might actually be wrong. Being hyper interventionist and all these things, they might actually be wrong. That's not the point. The point is that there is something greater behind Al Qaeda using those talking points, and that is their fundamental hate for the disbelievers, or the disbelievers being close to their lands, and that is why Al Qaeda is using those talking points. They're using those talking points as an excuse in order to perpetuate and justify their hate against the disbelievers, just as Stalin used correct talking points in order to perpetuate his global communist ideals and his hate for the West. So Dave Smith made the entire point that was being made against him without even realizing it.
No, he wouldn't. Dave Smith is super genius on all topics.
Incredible. Exactly sure if this is true, but that actually had that was a big part of the civil rights movement and getting the national security apparatus on board with it, because they wanted to plug up that hole in the
I know what you're thinking. Come on. Oh man.
Propaganda war. I'm not sure if that's right or not. But the point is that, no, I'm not saying the terrorists get a veto over it.
I don't think that's right. I think that was a very minor factor in my opinion.
Yeah, that might be right. I'm really, honestly, not sure about it. I've heard it argued before. But regardless, there certainly were people who wanted to plug up that hole in the
Those people were the old zoot. There certainly were people who wanted to zoot that hole. Why, man? He knows what he's saying. He's sitting here thinking, you know what? David Wood and AP are going to be watching this later because we're talking about Islam. So let me drop in a bunch of obvious zoot openings for jokes because I'm a comedian. Shame on you. Shame on you for tarnishing such a noble show as ours. You're perverted. Perverted line.
Propaganda war. Not saying that that's what percentage, that had to do with it actually going through. But I would say that I'm not suggesting bin Laden get to dictate our policy. I'm saying that when bin Laden states his list of grievances, and they are, you have your military bases in our Holy Land. You prop up Israel, who mistreats the Palestinians. You've been
You make mischief. You make mischief. Okay. Now talk more about making mischief, and then, of course, why he thinks he is obligated, even if it's a country telling you to do it. Why he believes it's not allowed, because you are making mischief in a Muslim land. Go ahead.
slaughtering children in Iraq for the last, I guess, decade at that point. And whatever, go through. You prop up brutal dictators in the region.
We didn't intervene soon enough in Bosnia.
Right. I'm
so they're
saying
not
that one I don't. Yeah,
they're not anti-U.S. military intervention. They just want it specifically prescribed in their.
Yes, but I'm not a bin Ladenite. I'm not coming on here to.
I'm not calling you
I think he was no, but I'm saying I'm not saying he was right about everything, and I'm not claiming that bin Laden was a non-interventionist libertarian like myself. I'm saying I, as an American who cares about this country remaining free and prosperous and safe, I can look at this list of grievances and say yeah, Coleman, that one about us not intervening enough is complete nonsense.
I just need to say something important before we continue. I would advise for self-proclaimed proud libertarians to stop using "I am a libertarian" as a bragging talking point, because it actually does the opposite effect. Thank you.
The one about us killing a whole bunch of Iraqi kids, he's got a point on that. So the one about us propping up Israel.
What I want to say, Dave.
Let me just real quickly, I'll just end this very quickly. It goes, this is kind of the whole spirit of George Washington's farewell speech. That it's like, look, you get involved.
Osama bin Laden was basically George Washington.
In all these entangling alliances, and it causes nothing but disaster for your own country. So yes, I think it's reasonable to look at some of those grievances and go, we should have no part in any of this.
So a few things, and then I want to move on to Ron Paul's other big pillar. Sure. You said the big awakening for you was this Ron Paul thing of why they hate us. And I'm really addressing myself to that.
And I have to say, Ron Paul may be a genius, just like Dave Smith. Ron Paul may have been completely correct on all kinds of political issues, for all I know. On this issue, Ron Paul had no clue what he was talking about. You can even agree with a lot of that people get ticked off about the United States being the world police. That's all true. But to think that the particular reaction of these Muslim terrorist groups isn't based on Islam, and that Islam is not the problem here, that's idiotic and dangerous, and Ron Paul had no freaking clue what he's talking about. And now you have Dave Smith repopularizing a theory that I thought was basically dead because it was tried and it failed miserably and led to ISIS. And now he's bringing it back so we can do the same stupid thing over again.
Because he's very intelligent.
Yeah.
That point, very simply, if Al-Qaeda did not believe in a Salafist extreme Islamist ideology, which is the most radical corner of Sunni Islam, I'm not saying it's all of Islam, not even most of it. Take away that one ingredient, we could do everything else the same in the Middle East as we had done.
Please,
overthrowing, backing the overthrow of Iran, the tough sanctions on Saddam Hussein, which caused a humanitarian crisis, putting our troops in Saudi Arabia, and they would not have flown planes into our buildings. That is my claim. That's my claim. And I think, and I'm addressing myself to this question of why they hate us. I agree with you. It's not.
He should have posed that as a question to Dave Smith.
In other words, said, if Islam did not have these teachings about making mischief in a Muslim land and about having to carry out the Islamic penalties for making mischief and having those connected to the people who actually fund the mischief making, which is the civilians and so on. And if you didn't have Muhammad saying, I've been made victorious with terror, and if you didn't have these overarching commands to violently subjugate the world so that people aren't allowed to say blasphemous things anymore. If you didn't have all of that, would those planes have been flown into the buildings? And the only thing Dave Smith could say here in his defense is yes, because the Jews would have done it anyway. But apparently he's not one of the crazy conspiracy theorists. And because Jews love to dance anyway, what are they going to do? Not dance?
Oh, it was the perfect opportunity to dance for them.
Yeah. So AP was saying that should have been as a question. Do you think they would have attacked us anyway? Let's see what he says here, though.
Hate us for our freedoms. It's that they hate us because they have a very powerful ideology, which makes them prejudge any actions by what they consider to be non-Muslim, Christian crusader, etc. And to me, it's crucial to understand if this issue of why they hate us, in fact, is important. And I'm not sure, I don't think that we can live with, I don't think the world, I don't just mean America, I don't think the world can live with a foreign policy that factors in the worst, most destabilizing elements of other societies, right? Because the Saudi regime, complain about their human rights all you want, and obviously one can write a book, and books have been written on that. They have a much better chance of ruling Saudi Arabia and ruling it in a way so that the people flourish than the Bin Ladenites.
Oh, so the point he's making there is, yeah, you can not like Saudi Arabia and you can think their government is a dictatorship and so on, and simultaneously think it's better that they're in charge than a bunch of freaking like flat out terrorists, like an actual Al-Qaeda terrorist group. And therefore it's in your interest to keep them, to keep the terrorists from taking over entire countries. What do you say?
That's true. The funny thing is that Saudi Arabia are also Salafis, just kind of a different strain or different type of it. Because Al-Qaeda would be the more extreme version of Salafism, which relies less on politics and stability, but rather on picking up the sword and fighting for it. Whereas the Saudi Arabian version, they weren't primarily Salafi, but have been stabilized under Salafism, or what is called Wahhabism, to establish Salafi Islam as the dominant force and to forbid anyone else from trying to subvert it or change it. But their Salafism is also why they have such brutal human rights violations, despite having relative harmony.
And if it were the case that in Korea, with our troops there, if there was some Korean terrorist group that said we can't have these Americans on sacred Korean soil anymore, it would not make sense to listen to that terror group over the Korean government and risk taking away our deterrence and make our foreign policy basis on that decision when the Korean government is trying to get rid of these groups anyway in order to create flourishing societies. So I think we have to be on the side of the elements in these societies, these developing societies, that are trying to haltingly and with many foibles bring their countries forward and make their countries prosperous.
Yeah.
Okay, last word.
So idea there is, yep, you can look at a bunch of disastrous countries and so on and still say, hey, some of these places are more likely to develop and make improvements under certain regimes than they are under a flat-out terrorist regime. And guess what? We've actually seen that in Saudi Arabia. We've actually seen progress in Saudi Arabia in terms of women's rights and so on. Like to see more. Let's say that we've seen more progress, let's say, in Saudi Arabia in terms of women's rights than in Afghanistan, where it's the reverse. They're crushing women there.
And then let's get to the other.
There's also been never a Ghazali concert in Afghanistan. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Why aren't the Taliban allowing Iggy Azalea to come and twerk in front of them?
That's the question.
Yeah. Oh, they'll sit there and bang 9-year-olds, but and goats, but not can't have a girl twerking.
Yeah, I guess I just am fundamentally unconvinced by this assertion that Islam is this necessary ingredient. I mean, there's been
Radical Salafi Islam. I just want to be very precise.
well, I don't know. The Iranians
I'll just say Islam.
seem to have a lot of resentment toward us for overthrowing their government.
Oh, by the way, sorry, just to clarify, I'm sorry to interrupt you. What I mean, any ideology, which many ideologies could fit this hole. It's not only Sunni
Stop it.
radical Sunni Islam. Other
I don't think
ideologies
it's only.
could fit.
I don't think it's only Islam. To be honest, I mean,
Yeah,
look, violence is used all
What
the
about the
time,
West
and
Baptist Church?
groups who have are oppressed violently often use violence in retaliation. We had slave revolts in this country that were incredibly violent. There's been all types of violence used by every major religion. Maybe not every minor one, but every major religion for sure. I just don't agree with that at all. I think that the obvious.
Yes, Dave Smith. Everyone can be violent. Everyone can be violent. Do you not see the difference between an ideology which says, hey, we encourage everyone, to love your neighbor as yourself, to love even your enemies, and still have human beings who will become violent, maybe kill tons of people? Do you not see the difference between that and an ideology that says, fight those who do not believe in Allah? And I've been commanded to fight people until they say there's no God but Allah. Again, going back to guess what? Are there Christians who beat their wives? Yep. Are there Jews who beat their wives? Yep. Are there atheists who beat their wives? Yep. Do you not understand the difference between an ideology which says you don't treat women that way, even though people still will, and on the other hand, an ideology that says you beat your wives into submission? Do you not see any difference there, Dave Smith? Child marriage. Guess what? You've had child marriage in various places in the world. Who are the world's leading defenders of child marriage? Guess what? They're Muslims. And why? It's because their prophet had sex with a 9-year-old girl, married a 6-year-old, and he's the supreme pattern of conduct in that religion. So could all these guys, Daniel Hakikachu, the Muslim cowboy, could all of these guys defending child marriage have something to do with their religion? Keep in mind, they're not talking about this, but if you ask Dave Smith, hey, Dave Smith, we've got all these guys, and they're all defending child marriage. We've got all these Dawa guys. They're all defending child marriage. They're all saying there's nothing wrong with having sex with a 9-year-old girl. Why are they saying that? Could that have a connection to their religion teaching that it's okay? Dave Smith's response obviously would be, what are you talking about? Other people have done it. What about this person over here? What about that king over there? See, it has nothing to do with the religion. My goodness, this is stupid reasoning, dude.
There is a stereotype in the world that a lot of Americans are very clueless about the rest of the world and other religions and all that. I would say that it's often not true, but in Dave Smith's case, it is one of those instances where it is like he has this notoriously strange attitude of we did these things as an American. We did these things. I'm not sure why he calls himself a libertarian. Maybe because he believes in libertarian, childish politics and all that. But he very much sounds like these liberal college kids who, behind everything, always find the fault in America, in us.
Specifically the oppressor, like. And everyone else is the victim.
Yeah, I know. People do strange things here and there, but what about us, we, America? I mean, we did some things here and there as well. Yeah. I mean, gosh, can you please be quiet, man?
Yeah. And then he has this smug look on his face.
Yeah.
You think that just because Islam commands these things, that it has something to do with it? Well, how do you explain other people doing the things too? See how stupid you are? My goodness, dude.
Element that when missing this, none of this would happen, is America's domination and killing of innocent people in this part of the world. When the King Crane
we get again, it, and you hate America
again.
We get it.
Before the United States did anything you've mentioned, they already hated us and declared it. And they said it's because of their book, which you're saying has nothing to do with any of this.
Because of the book.
went to Syria after World War I, and they held this huge polling apparatus that tens of thousands of people were interviewed, and they overwhelmingly voted that they wanted America to rule over Syria in a League of Nations mandate. And the reason it's really the opposite of what the George W. Bush administration said. It's not, they don't hate us for our freedom. They actually kind of loved us for our freedom. They viewed America as the good guys. America were the ones, the city on the hill, who were all about liberty. They hated the British and they hated the French. Why is that? Well, because they were dominating them. It's like the most natural human tendency on earth to hate the people who dominate you and violently oppress you. And it's quite often the case that people embrace violence in response.
Let me go ahead and grant. Pretty natural to want to respond in certain circumstances with violence. Pretty natural for lots of guys to think, oh man, my wife just won't shut up. I'll just slap the crap out of her. That's pretty natural for a lot of guys. There's a difference between something being natural and having a shared ideology that actually promotes and encourages it, right? You can have things that are natural, and yet you're told, hey, I don't care if you feel like that. I don't care if you have a natural inclination to do that. I don't care if you have a natural inclination to punch a natural inclination when someone disagrees with you to punch them in the face. We don't care. You don't get to do it. Stop it. Stop doing that. You don't see the difference. If you don't see the difference between that and, yes, you respond to anything that you don't like with violence. I don't know what to do, man.
That said, I have to say that this was the first coherent point that he actually made during this entire discussion.
No, all his points were awesome and coherent.
I don't think that's unique to Islam. I think that's more of a thing that brings us all together. I don't mean to be such an egalitarian on your show here. I assure you I'm not one. But I think that is one of the things that humans have in common. So I just don't see it as, violence. I think that violence, we like to distinguish between terrorism and counterterrorism, but that's really usually not much of a distinction, or at least there's usually not a very objective definition for it. Israel is quite comfortable using lots of violence right now. They're quite comfortable killing a building full of innocent people to get a guy that they don't like. And, what this reminds me of?
When Donald Trump got elected, there was this time where whenever there was a regular liberal commentator, all they would talk about was Donald Trump. I mean, can't you believe Donald Trump? I mean, there's something going on the other side of the world, and they'll be like, this just reminds me of how terrible Donald Trump is. This is basically what he sounds like, just in respect to Israel.
There's been acts of terrorism. Some argue Israel introduced terrorism into the pre-Israeli Zionist settlers introduced terrorism.
Jews invented terrorism. You just heard it, ladies and gentlemen.
Terrorism into the region. I don't think it's something that's unique to Islam. And I don't think,
no one said terrorism, wife beating, violence, killing people you disagree. No one said that is unique to Islam. What is unique about Islam is that it encourages and promotes these things as from God. Yes, various human beings can do the exact same thing. There's one ideology that says, and God wants you to do all these things. He wants you to do these things. Other people are telling you don't do these things. No. Allah's telling you definitely need to do these things. And that's a serious, serious, serious difference. If you don't believe me, Dave Smith, just do a little experiment. Take 10 husbands and 10 wives and tell those men, hey, you may occasionally have an urge to slap your wife. Don't do it. Tell them that their entire lives. And take another group and says, hey, if your wives do something you don't like it, God wants you to beat them until they obey you. Tell that group the same thing. Tell that group that. And then let them go on for a while and see if you spot a difference. And of course, you will spot a difference. And you'll say, hey, it's actually a problem. It's actually a problem if you teach people that God wants you to beat women into submission. And Dave Smith will respond, but other people beat wives too, so it can't have anything to do with commanding. This is stupid, man.
I'm going to try to experiment tomorrow.
Let's do it.
Essentially do agree with your point that most of these
don't even get his
dictators in the in the Middle East are preferable to the Bin Ladenite, head choppers. I agree with you, and in fact, I've been very critical of our foreign policy for siding with the Bin Ladenite head choppers in Libya, Syria, Yemen.
This is so embarrassing.
I guess not in Iraq, but next door in Syria. So yeah, I certainly don't think we should be backing the Bin Ladenites either. But that it's not a choice between do we prop up brutal dictators or do we back the Bin Ladenites who oppose them, which seems to.
Do you understand what's happening here, Dave Smith? This is very embarrassing as an outsider from looking at it from the outside. You actually think, oh yeah, I'm making this fantastic point, and Coleman and I actually agree on this. You actually have no idea what Coleman is saying. And that is very embarrassing. You just think you agree here on this point because you're smug and you can't listen. This is very embarrassing.
Sounds about right. And again, I haven't seen the rest of it. This is the beginning. Apparently, it was all downhill for Dave Smith after this.
This is very embarrassing.
Yeah, we're on the last.
Now I see why people are saying he absolutely destroyed Dave Smith. I haven't seen it, but I get it now. There's a huge intellectual difference here. Huge.
Be the binary choice that the American foreign policy establishment has been working within. But there is a third option there, which is that we don't have to do any of this. It's not in our national interest. It leads to horrific outcomes. We get nothing out of it. And it was never, and it's also just completely unconstitutional. It's not at all what our government was formed to be. We're not supposed to be the world empire. We're supposed to be a limited constitutional republic. And the people never got a vote on this. There was never a referendum on do we want to become a world empire.
This is why I like
in fact,
Ron Paul.
if you look down track list of American elections, the anti-war candidate seems to win just about every single time. Whereas if you run back the presidential elections, who was the more anti-war? Was it Kamala Harris or Donald Trump? Or at least was perceived as more anti-war. It was Donald Trump. He wins. Him or Hillary Clinton, Trump, he wins. Obama destroys McCain. George W. Bush in the year 2000 ran on a humble foreign policy, no nation building. And it's like, I don't think the American people want this. And I think if we ever actually, and I don't think it's good for the country. So I'll wrap on that.
All right. So that was Dave Smith explaining Islam and how we should all listen to Ron Paul, even if there's no connection at all to reality in anything he's saying.
I have never listened to Coleman Hughes before. I didn't know who he was. Somebody that I appreciate a lot sent me an interview of his, or a discussion of his earlier, which I might listen and look into. But just from this here alone, just from this exchange alone, I have a lot of respect for the guy. He seems very smart and sharp and good and on point. As for Dave Smith, this is one of many times that I've actually listened to him speak about something, and he sounds as clueless as he always does. And please, man, please, when it comes to something like Islam, especially Islam's impact on the world, stop talking trash. Stop talking nonsense. Inform yourself on the matter. Stop trying to educate the masses on something so crucial. It is stupid. It is dangerous. It is misguiding. Just let it go. Don't do it. Leave it to others. Stick to, praising and having posters of Ron Paul on your wallpapers. You sound very, very dumb. And yeah, that's it.
Pretty bad, pretty bad. So that was the entire discussion of Islam, as far as I know. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, it's the people who know the least about Islam who consider themselves the experts. It's the only topic I'm aware of. It's the only topic I'm aware of where the less you know about it, the more of an expert you think you are. And I'm not even talking about Dave Smith there. Just over the years, right? There's various presidents will jump up and say, "Ha, that group is not Islamic. I'm telling you what real Islam is." And they have no clue what they're talking about, but they feel confident enough that they are the experts, and the actual jihadis who are carrying out the commands of Allah, they don't know what they're talking about. It's the only topic where the less you know, the more of an expert you are. And the more you know, the less of an expert you are. Like you wouldn't have this in any other field. If you would never say, oh, the less you know about math, the more of a mathematician you are, and the more you know about math, the less of a mathematician. It would just be completely incoherent nonsense. And yet we get to Islam, and it's the one topic where that rule applies. Weird stuff. All right, let's check these super chats, and we'll be out of here, man. Same as the left. America West bad. Churchill made Hitler do it. We made Russia do it. We made ISIS do it. Imperialism, oppressor, oppressed. Yep. And that's spreading right now. Hey, David, I found a new Islamic dilemma. The Quran affirms Sabians as true believers in Allah. Yeah. These are Gnostics known as Mandeans, a cult of John the Baptist who hate Jesus, Moses, and the God of Israel. I'm not sure about that because you had a couple of different groups there.
So what happened with that is there's a different interpretation as to who the Sabians actually are. But historically, after the Muslims took over the region of the Middle East, Iraq, and further north and west, and they encountered the Mandeans. The Mandeans identified themselves as the Sabians mentioned in the Quran, and tried to get a status of tolerated dhimmis instead of being regarded as pagans and wiped out. But it's not really clear whether they are actually applicably the Sabians mentioned in the Quran.
Yeah, that's why I said I'm not sure about that, because you have, that's where Muslims took the part of the Shahada from. So the Shahada actually came from the Sabians saying, there is no God but Allah. And Muslims just added, and Muhammad is his messenger. They also had 7 daily prayers, and 5 of them were the exact same times as what ended up in Islam. You actually have sources where Muslims were confused with the Sabians. They were like, hey, people thought that when Muslims were talking to them that they were Sabians because they had adopted a lot of the claims and so on and practices from them. But that's just what happens when Muhammad is stealing his entire religion from the people around him.
That's what they do.
You guys always make my Lego builds more interesting. Got a Mike Winger fan, apparently. Now, if only this piece would go in. Not in the al-Zut sense. That's good. For Cosmic Observer, Ramzi Youssef, Twin Tower bomber, apparently converted from Islam to Christianity in max security prison. Thoughts? We're saying this is for Cosmic Observer. So you're asking Cosmic Observer for his thoughts? He has no ability to share his thoughts except for in the chat there.
Otherwise, he wouldn't be an observer. He would be a commenter. Yeah.
If I was an terrorist, what would I want? To do my jihad without opposition. How do I get what I want? Convince the opposition it's their own fault. It doesn't have to be true. Yep. Predator behavior. That is correct. You have stupid people falling for it, thanks to Dave Smith and Ron Paul. So Muhammad got cheated on by the al-Zut, you see. Yes, he did. That's true. Why are the left and woke right silent about real genocides like against Nigerian Christians and in Sudan? Do they not get the common denominator in those places, Congo, Mozambique, Syria, and the rise of anti-Semitism in Western Europe?
Because no Jews.
No Jews, no news.
Plus, the victims are Christians, not Muslims.
Mm-hmm. When life gives you lemmas, prove it. That's true. Dave Smith, but I'm just a comedian. His go-to say, oh yeah, Dave Smith, but I'm just a comedian. Yeah. If you get something wrong, hey, I'm just a comedian. It's nice and convenient.
I'm just a comedian.
I don't know anything. I'm just a comedian. You guys don't get it. You guys don't get it. Only non-Muslims have agency. That's true.
That's true.
Instead of this abstract theorizing, Dave could just go to any street corner in a Muslim city and ask. Yep, that would help, but I'll never do it. Guys, once you've decided ahead of time and you only strive to make reality line up with your thinking, there is no scenario where you're actually going to go and you need to go and look for evidence.
I would actually love that. I think I would like to invite Dave Smith to go to a bunch of Muslims and ask them about their thoughts on the disbelievers. That would be very funny.
Mm-hmm. Oh, we love all disbelievers except when they're oppressing us like the United States. They would probably scope him out ahead of time and be like, what answer could we give this guy to help him continue spreading nonsense for us? Does Islam make its members dumb? God Logic had like 5 Muslims say that it is impossible for God to have a son right after reading a surah that said God could have a son if he wanted to. Yeah. The men of al-Zut paid jizya to the Prophet Muhammad. Yep. Got lots of jizya.
Abundantly.
You got the jizya of 30 men. Dave Smith is a narcissistic idiot who believes he's smarter and more moral than anybody else. This kind of ignorant arrogance has become a pandemic in the West. Yes, it has. Got problems. I'm a libertarian, which means I have to allow evil to happen. I'm a libertarian, which means I have to allow evil to happen because if I do anything, that'll make me more evil than the evil guy. What lover talk.
That's basically what Dave Smith is doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just imagine if you applied this thinking to all situations. You're walking down the street, you see a guy over there, and he's like about to grape a woman. He's got her, and he's about to, well, I don't want to interfere because then I would be the sort of person who interferes instead of minding my own business, and so on. It's like, and I'd be worse than the actual rapist there.
Somehow he doesn't apply that logic when it comes to Israel.
Did someone give Dave Smith the 99 names pine cone to plug holes? Al-Zut. Hey, why are you guys talking about Al-Zut here?
This is a serious show, man.
Live Game says, full support, brothers. It's hyperactive. Love, I joined late, but not in the way the Al-Zut joined Mo. That's good. Yeah, don't join in the way Al-Zut joined with Mo. Ask Dave about the Crusades, and he'll blame Christianity and our book for the violence instead of Christians responding to Islamic expansion. Yet that would not be surprising. War is natural, peace is not. Source, history. Yes, that is correct. Oh, since war is natural, that must mean that if you have an ideology that calls for war, it's the same thing as anything else.
That's what Ron Paul taught me.
Muhammad, I've been made victorious through terror. Dave, the Jews introduced terrorism into that area. The way the Al-Zut introduced. Anyway, we did have a referendum on whether we wanted to be a world empire. That referendum resulted in Ron Paul getting stomped in the GOP primary. Yeah, I guess you could say that. Why didn't, if people really liked the Ron Paul way, why didn't he win? Dave Smith looked like he had to rest his head on Masood's lap. He got zooted in that debate, and he had to rest his head on Ibn Masood's lap. Nice. All right, everyone. Thanks for watching. We got through that, and we saw one of the ongoing problems. Keep in mind, everyone, when we put sources up on the screen and so on, you guys, you just have to learn that stuff. Take some screenshots. You need to share that stuff. Why? Because you have very popular influencers going around and spreading complete nonsense about this stuff not having to do with Islam. How do you respond to that? By showing them why it has everything to do with Islam. And you just have to do it over and over and over again because there are people who are massively misleading people, and it's just dangerous. It's better to be well informed about Islam than to believe a bunch of complete idiotic nonsense from a comedian. All right, AP, final thoughts or anything about what's coming up?
I think we've already had final thoughts.
All right, you heard it here, folks.
There can be nothing more final than what we already had.
We're going to be on your channel tomorrow?
Yes.
Be on AP's channel tomorrow, Lord willing, everyone.
Inshallah.
Catch y'all then.
See y'all.
Be base.
Peace.